we on air? Hello, testing. Hey everyone, hey moonwalkers. This is
Howdy,
your
howdy.
girl, Jennifer Jackson, and my guest, Invincible
Tori.
Jacksons. There we go. So this week is just not any week. It is Vindication Week. That's what we're celebrating this week is Vindication Week. So on Friday, we're going to celebrate June 13th, 2005. So what happened that day? Something incredible. Michael Jackson made history along with Tom Mesereau. So Michael Jackson was officially found not guilty on all 14 charges. So what we're going to do today is we're going to deep dive there was a podcast that was created by MJcast on the 10th anniversary of Vindication Day, June 13th. It's coming up Friday. And we're going to kind of listen to that and make comments. So just be ready. And if you're watching live, drop your country in the chat representing where you're from and type innocent if you stand with MJ today, 2025. Hey,
Butterflies.
Hey. Let me say hi to everyone. Yes, Paul, not guilty. Innocent always.
I wore white to represent. That's all I got.
That's right. Hey, Jay. All is well. How are you? Yes. Let's celebrate this moment in history. Absolutely. We have to keep reminding everyone of Michael's innocence. That's our duty. I feel like that's my personal duty as a Michael Jackson fan. I mean, I don't know about Tori, but that's my personal duty. We have to keep reminding the world. We have to keep fighting for him. Go ahead.
I agree. That's mine too.
I mean, we celebrate his music, of course, but I think the most important part is Michael's philanthropy and his innocence for me, and Michael Jackson as a human being, as a man, Michael himself. So, and then on the side, we celebrate the king of pop, his music, his dance, and all of that greatness. Hey, John, how's it going?
Hey.
Hello, Misha. Hello, Jen and Tori. Trish is not here. Trish, if you're in the chat, would like to join you. You're more than welcome to.
I didn't even read that.
Hi. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Oh, Jamaica. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Wow. I'm doing pretty good. Tori?
I'm doing good. This week it came fast. But I'm happy that quite a bit is happening this week. Not even just on the day, but we're starting early. We're starting the celebration early. Yeah. So I'm happy about that.
Yes. And I hope we can keep this going, moving forward, celebrating Vindication, not only day, which is on Friday, but week. So, we're kind of going to plan ahead, but maybe next year we can do an entire week of something.
Oh.
I don't know about a week, but we can work something out to celebrate it.
Okay.
All right. So before that, I do want to remind everybody about Stationhead. So if you're not part of Stationhead, make sure to join. It is a Michael Jackson global radio. You do have to have Spotify Premium or Apple Music to join. But if you have that, it's free. You just create an account and just hang out there. We have a chat as well. So we listen to Michael 24/7, and anyone from anywhere around the world can join. So check that out. You can either pause this video if you watch the playback or screenshot this. And on this flyer, here on this side, I can't point to it. But on the right side flyer, it kind of gives you the instructions on how to join. And I think, we changed the schedule, but from 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 12, I have a show. Then my co-host, straight on to morning, which is Ray. She's been a guest on this channel. Takes over, and then I take over again at 6 p.m. and then she goes to the graveyard. So we kind of like alternate. So there's always a DJ on schedule, and we do stream 24/7. We have parties on there. We have listening parties. We have different shows, different celebrations. So feel free to check that out. And then the next thing, I'm trying to go quick because this podcast is pretty long. So we are trying to, well, Moonwalkers on Stationhead are trying to kind of like set an arrangement like this. This was from last year. So we on the, what is it? Can you see it on there? On the GoFundMe, we're trying to collect some donations. If you can, any amount is more than welcome. We're trying to send an arrangement this year as well. So this was last year. With all the donations that we got, we were able to send 3. We had a poster and everything on there.
I love the angel one.
Yes, so beautiful. So if you can, like I said, any donation helps. Feel free to donate. It's open till June 18th. And Tori, would you like to promote something?
Yes. So I know right now, for the most part, I don't know if people do anything in person or anything like that for this, but if you're unable to do anything in person, there will be an all-day online event. It'll be a trend called Michael Jackson Forever Innocent. And with this, we wanted to let people know that just because he was vindicated, the vindication doesn't make him innocent. He is just innocent. He's always been innocent. To me, I see it as a vindication in court, recognizing that innocence and acquitting him rightfully and him getting the justice. So we put that down here. Michael Jackson has always been innocent, and this fact was proven in court 20 years ago. Please join us in celebrating his vindication by trending hashtag Michael Jackson Forever Innocent on June 13th. And then we'll start trending all at the same time around the world. So 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, that's West Coast in the U.S., 12 p.m. Eastern Time, that's East Coast in the U.S., and then 5 p.m. London time. So all over the world, trend, post pictures from Vindication Day, talk about, Michael, what he means to you, what his innocence means to you. Share things that humanize him. Maybe share like a story about, stories that you heard of that, you feel is like, it shows his funny side, that he is a human, that he's not just like this mega star that's like not down to earth or anything like that. He was human, like Jen was saying. So share anything, share your pictures, which like your MJ Innocent merch, anything that you have. And once again, hashtag Michael Jackson Forever Innocent. Educate the peoples. Do it with kindness, do it with love.
Yes.
And don't get yourself stressed out that day. So if anybody tries to argue, any trolls come, block them and keep on pushing. Don't even try. Don't even try to reason with them. They don't want to be reasoned with. Also, I came across an event from someone else. I'm not exactly sure who's. I think it's Mother Diva. She does a lot of stuff in Gary, Indiana, like at the house and stuff. I think this is her event. I'm assuming because her name's down here. But this is an in-person event. And, oh, wait, government officials declare.
Zoom in.
Oh, wait. I forgot all about this. Last year, or maybe 2 years ago, she got a proclamation read and made from the government in Gary, Indiana.
Glendale. In Glendale. She brought the mayor of, yeah.
So she brought, wow, she's doing it all. She has a Michael Jackson Innocent Day. They're declaring it on Friday, June 13th, 2025 at 1 p.m., gathering in front of Santa Barbara Superior Courts. Here is the address for you all. 312 East Cook Street, Santa Maria, California, zip code 93454. They'll be playing the verdict at 2:10 p.m., which was the same time it was read exactly 20 years ago. There also will be guest speaker Eddie Griffin, who is a comedian and also one of Michael's good friends, who actually took him to the trial. So that was when I heard that story, I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then also there will be, I'm assuming, a possible White Dove release. It says bring White Doves to release. And then also one thing Michael loved to reflect: humanitarianism, helping the environment, helping the animals and the people. They're asking that you please bring animal toys and treats for donation to Santa Maria's animal shelter. And then if you have any inquiries about sponsoring or to donate, you can contact the creator, Mother Diva. And here's the number and the email address down here. Wow, I wish
Awesome. I wish I was there.
what?
I definitely would go. Definitely sign me up.
Yeah, I just read. I said, wait a minute, government. I said, government. Oh shoot, she getting another day. She's getting days collected them like Pokemon Go.
I think I might be wrong, but I think the mayor might have declared, was it, the mayor of Glendale might have declared June 25th something. Might be Michael Jackson there, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I have to look back, but the mayor was there. I saw her last year, so yeah, she did something different at Forest Lawn. While we watch this, I kind of look it up and I'll let you guys know at the end.
She
But that's
usually does
incredible.
live streams too, or like has it recorded and posted online. So if there's
Mm-hmm.
anything, if anybody can't make it or anything like that, I could try and find it.
Government officials declare Michael Jackson innocent. That would be awesome. I would love that for June 13th.
Mm-hmm.
I hope they do like a live stream. I hope she does. That'd be pretty cool to watch it.
Yeah. So that means that would be what would be starting 1 p.m. there. I think 4 p.m. That'd be 4
Mm-hmm.
p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
Hmm. Oh, I don't have the picture, but also Friday we'll be doing another live stream celebration for Vindication Day. We want to make it a happy environment, positivity, no doom and gloom or anything like that. Um, the whole situation is frustrating, but there will be a live discussion. I know it'll be me and Jen at least, and possibly some other guests. And so we'll be doing a watch party of Vindication Day and having a discussion as well. So I'll have some sort of visual for that coming soon.
I'm not big on the visuals. I'm just starting off, y'all.
No, I don't even have a thumbnail. I gotta make the thumbnail. I should have made it last night, but I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I
Life
worked.
being lifing, y'all. So a lot's going on behind the scenes, personally and in the MJ.
Yeah.
And we're still waiting for the Bible. But anyways, it's a whole discussion.
All I'm saying is
We're just like SMR.
we might have to gear up for next year. Because I thought about it, and we don't even have. I'm saying, oh, we need to have if we get the teaser by June, then maybe we'll be able to get. We don't even have a movie poster. Movie poster comes first.
So we're still waiting on that, y'all. But we made our own event.
Mm-hmm.
So to keep you guys, fed in a way that just I love doing this, to hang. Thank you so much to hang out with you all, with the guests, and just chit chat. It's like it feels like a family gathering virtually. So thank you so much, Butterfly. I appreciate that. Thank you. I love these little guys. And I love that guy right here, and this guy right here, and this guy right here.
Michael all over the place.
Yeah,
Is that brick like for off the wall?
Yes, it is a brick wall.
Wow.
You see it? And this is a vinyl right here. This right here is a vinyl. These are Funko Pops. This is the calendar. These
Mature Mike.
I gotta have my boo there. Okay. Okay. So we're going to listen to the MJcast with Tom Mesereau as a guest. Well, kind of like a podcast. It's kind of long, but hang with us. They're gonna like break down what he went through, like behind the scenes and all of that. And I just appreciate what Tom did. He's so amazing, and he's still working till this day with the state for other reasons. I don't want to get into it, but he's still defending Michael to this day. So much love to Tom Mesereau for what he did and what he keeps doing for Michael. I mean, he was just the bomb, and he did not back down. And he's so professional and like to the point. He's not like an aggressive lawyer or anything like that. So let me take the comment off. But thank you so much. I still yes, I think A Rock With You was the latest one. Thank you.
I'm trying not to be tempted to buy stuff right now. Ooh.
So if you guys are ready, if you're ready, Tori, let's get into it, because it's gonna
Are
be
you putting
a good
it on
one.
the screen?
Yes, I am. Yes. I
okay.
am. Let me see. Let me pull it up. Present. Let me know if you see it. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll also post a link for this right here on the description. So make sure to support them as well. They're great. The podcast is great. And they always have some great guests. So make sure to subscribe to them, to support them, give them a thumbs up, and please give this live video a replay a thumbs up, comment, and don't forget to share and subscribe. Appreciate you. And also to my guest, Tori. All right. I'll remind you at the end too. All right, so let's get into it. Let me know if you guys can hear in the chat.
It's just amazing, Tom, that we can have you on the MJcast. Thank you so much for agreeing to come onto the show today to discuss your work with Michael during the mid-2000s in defending him.
Well, it's my great honor and pleasure. And as I've said many times, he was one of the nicest, kindest people I ever met. It was a joy to represent him. I'm sorry he had to go through such pain and suffering in the process, but it was a great honor for me and a great historical event for a criminal lawyer like me to be part of. And I feel very blessed that I could defend him.
And we as fans, we thank you very much for all of your support after the trial as well, Tom. I think you've been a pillar of strength, not only for Michael, but often for the fan community. The first question we wanted to ask you was basically just a quick one. Where did you grow up and what kind of childhood did you have?
Well, I was born in West Point, New York at the United States Military Academy. My father was a graduate of the academy, as was my uncle. And my grandfather was an honorary member of the West Point class of 1915, which was a famous West Point class that included President Eisenhower and Generals Omar Bradley and Swing and other famous American generals. A lot of my upbringing was in New Jersey, about 45 minutes away from West Point. But the academy seemed to influence a lot of the atmosphere that I grew up in. My mother's side of the family, her father was Italian. He had an Italian restaurant in New York City, which was a very well-known restaurant in the time. Both my grandmothers were Irish from New York. My father's father was French and Irish, and he raised my father and his family in New Jersey, not far from Englewood, New Jersey, where I was raised. I was very blessed to have affluent circumstances in my upbringing. However, we were raised to be very strict Catholics, and I attended a Catholic school, which was downtown in Englewood, New Jersey, which we called a parochial school. It was very much like a public school. I had my disciplinary problems at the school, I have to admit. A lot of fighting and a lot of shenanigans that drove my parents crazy.
I love that. That's so cool.
I attended actually 4 high schools in 5 years. The first high school was in New York City. It was a small Jesuit school where I managed to get suspended numerous times. I switched from that school to another Jesuit school for a short period of time. Then I left and went to a Catholic high school called Bergen Catholic in New Jersey, and then spent one extra year of high school because I really was maturing rather late, and that was at Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts. I had a wonderful year there, and then attended Harvard University, where I graduated as an undergraduate. I
Incredible.
attended the London School of Economics for a year, obtained a master's degree, and then I went to the University of California's Hastings College of Law in San Francisco, where I got my law degree.
Wow.
So, Tom, how did you turn from a high school rebel into a passionate lawyer?
Well, I think it was a gradual process. My father had taken a law class at West Point. He always wished he had gone to law school. And he always said to me, if you're not sure what you want to do with your career, consider law because it's an avenue to many different opportunities. And he was absolutely correct. I graduated from law school and wasn't quite sure where I fit into the profession. So I started with a big civil litigation law firm in Washington, D.C., a firm that was highly recognized around the country as a top civil firm. And they represented a lot of corporations, energy companies, public utilities. I spent about a year there. I then was a prosecutor in Southern California, where I was very much a fish out of water. It was just not for me. I then got a very unique job as assistant to the president of a oil company subsidiary, where I was running around the country just interviewing lawyers, supervising what they did, trying to put out administrative and political and legal fires, of various types. I then joined a small law firm that did mostly civil work. I did transactional work and civil litigation, but gradually began to realize the courtroom and civil rights and defending people who are up against it was really my calling. Everything else interested me for a while. Then the question would be, where can I find passion? Because I've always believed that a passion for what you do is the best way of life imaginable. And I eventually found it as a trial lawyer and found it as particularly a criminal defense lawyer. I did try civil cases as well. I began to donate my time to nonprofit organizations that helped impoverished people in Los Angeles. And one thing led to another. But my father was correct. A law degree does give you many options and many opportunities to try different things. I actually dropped out of law school my first year because I thought of being a journalist. And I interviewed with CBS and a number of newspapers, and I had a rather idealistic notion that I would be a foreign correspondent and sort of parachute into crisis situations around the world and see them for myself and get a feeling for myself as to what was going on. And I say that because I'm the kind of person that's rather skeptical of what people tell me is going on in the world. I've always thought I've got to see things myself, and I think good criminal lawyers are skeptics. They don't just blindly accept what the media is saying. They don't just blindly accept what the public portrays people as being. They have to get inside and see for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tom, what were you?
I just want to say real quick, that just right there, don't give up, guys. First of all, if you're watching and you're still in school, you don't have to be, I guess, the best student, because you have a great example right here. And he dropped out the first year. So if you're in school and you dropped out the first year, you can always go back and still do amazing things. So there's still a chance, and there's always an opportunity. It's never too late. And as you can see, Tom Mesereau, you can do like a background on him. He's amazing what he does. He's still in the field, and he's just still going at it. So don't give up, guys. Tori?
I'm glad that they're getting the background information instead of just jumping straight into like, okay, like they're building it up to Victory Day and they're giving us the background. So for people who aren't familiar with him, they know, like, where he came from, where he started from, how he got to where he was, and how he got to helping get Michael vindicated.
Yeah.
So I think it's good that they that's a great way to do an interview, by the way.
Yes.
Have you ever interviewed anyone?
Yeah, and the MJcast is amazing at that. They always get the background and kind of like tell the story behind the person. So, like I said, make sure to check them out too.
Mm-hmm.
Back at it.
Your early days as a lawyer like, and what were some of the earlier cases you actually tried?
Well, my early days were finding myself. As I say, I joined a big law firm, and it was a large organization with offices around the United States. And large organizations have their politics, and they have their ways to survive and thrive that people have to learn. And I just realized I didn't like learning those things. I didn't like politics particularly. I didn't like learning just how to scratch the right backs and have them scratch you, and survive in an organizational way. I was always somewhat of a loner and an outsider, and I had to find a way to incorporate that into my professional life. And I gradually began donating a lot of time to help poor people for free. I would donate time at free legal clinics, mostly in the Black community in Los Angeles. I'd always been against the death penalty for various reasons. I'd read many horrible stories about how the death penalty was administered in the Deep South in the United States. And I said to myself at one point, I'd like to experience myself what goes on, see if these criticisms are correct.
Ooh.
And I let the word out that
I'm glad he brought that up. And I might be jumping the gun a little bit, but people that were in like similar situations, like Michael's position, in regular life, like people get convicted of stuff they didn't do, extreme things like MURDER. I'm gonna just spell it out because I don't know if I can say that on here. But yeah, people get convicted of that, and they don't even do anything. It might just be like a false witness, or they get lied on, or the police and interrogators themselves want to just pin this on somebody, like maybe a minority that they have that they're discriminating against and stuff. And so when that happens, a lot of times, like I said, like people in Michael's situation, they get convicted and then they might end up on death row.
Mm-hmm.
And then there have been times, like even in recent years, where I've seen that happen to someone, and there was reasonable doubt, and they're like it needed to be reinvestigated, and they ended up signing off, and then having that happen. So I feel like these two concepts kind of correlate with each other. So I'm glad he brought that up.
Yeah. There's a lot of innocent people that have gone through that, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's sad.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
I wanted to try in front of juries some death penalty cases in the South. And the reaction I got was, "Are you crazy? You're not from there. It's a different culture. You will not be well received. You'll have a life in your hands. And why don't you just work on appellate work and what we call habeas petition work, which is a version of post-conviction remedies for somebody who's been sent to death row." And I said, "No, I want to try the cases." And lo and behold, I got a call that there was a very controversial death penalty case about to be tried in Birmingham, Alabama. It was a homeless Black man charged with killing a beautiful white girl in a very established part of Birmingham. And it was getting tremendous press. Two white lawyers were appointed to defend the person charged. They were getting some death threats on their machines. And they reached out and asked if I'd be interested. And I said I would. I flew to Birmingham and met them, and we became instant friends. And I've been doing pro bono capital murder cases now in the Deep South for the last 18 years. You ask about some of my early cases. I remember one of the first pro bono cases I ever did was a civil case where a nonprofit organization was going to bat for an elderly African-American man in his late 80s. His wife had passed away, and his only asset was a small house in South Central Los Angeles, which was primarily a Black neighborhood. And an individual had come to the United States from another country. He had trained a largely Black female sales force to target people like this man. And they knocked on his door and convinced him he needed to recarpet his home. They took the cheapest carpet on the market, carpeted his home. They had him sign a bunch of documents he didn't understand. He couldn't read. And when he missed one payment, they started foreclosing on his house. They're about to steal the only asset this fellow had. And I heard about this, and I decided to join the civil team that was going to defend him in this case and get his house back. And we did do that. And it turned out this was a large scam going on in these poor neighborhoods where people were unwittingly signing documents, including trust deeds on their home, to companies owned by the same people that were, manufacturing the carpet and installing the carpet. And it was a big fraud. So I got involved in that. And then I began to just appear at church clinics and counsel people, whatever the problem was. And I just discovered that I had great satisfaction as a lawyer and as a human being when I did this. And it became a major part of my existence. I went through a crisis in my mid-30s where I went through a divorce and some financial problems, and I was wrestling with this idea of, is materialism the answer to a fulfilling life? And I realized it just was not. I had to make a difference, and I had to find an outlet for compassion for the underdog, a certain passion for justice, a desire to see people treated equally and not devalued because of their race or their socioeconomic status. And one thing led to another. I was at the First African Methodist Episcopal Church Free Clinic one Sunday, donating my time, and another lawyer there turned out to be the entertainment lawyer for actor Robert Blake, who was very famous in the United States at the time. And he was charged with murdering his wife. It was a very high-profile case. And he said to me, Mr. Blake's parting ways with his current lawyer. Would you like to meet him? And I said, sure. And I met him and became his lead lawyer, and was able to get him out of jail in a case where that had never happened before in California. It was a murder with special circumstances case. Nobody had ever gotten bail, which enables you to exit jail in a case like that if the prosecutors objected. And I was able, after a 3-week televised preliminary hearing, to get him out of jail and to turn his case around in a positive way. And Michael Jackson's people, including Randy Jackson, Michael's brother, was a friend of mine, and they were following the case very carefully. When Michael got in trouble, they started calling me, and one thing kind of led to another, and here I am.
Wow. So it's amazing that it was by working for free in the poor community that you ended up representing your celebrity clients.
Yeah, that is an unusual route. I mean, when I explain that to people, they are quite surprised. It was, normally it's assumed that the route to celebrity clients is celebrity land itself, Hollywood. And I'd had a few entertainment clients through the years, but that wasn't really where the bulk of my time or efforts were being spent. And you're absolutely correct. It was an unusual way to go where I went.
So the Michael Jackson case that you were invited into was not the first. Of course, it started in 1993 with the Geordie Chandler case that ended in a settlement. How much were you aware of that case before you became personally involved in Michael Jackson's life? And what did you think of the way it was handled?
Well, I was aware of it because it received a lot of press, particularly in Los Angeles. And the plaintiff's lawyer in that case, Larry Feldman, who represented the Chandlers, the people who were suing Michael Jackson, he was a master at using the press to pressure Michael Jackson's lawyers. And I remember driving through Los Angeles and turning on the radio and hearing his periodic statements. He would say, we're just looking for the truth. We're not afraid of the truth. We're going to expose it in court. And he was doing this in a very, very carefully thought out way to pressure Michael Jackson's lawyers to settle a case. In retrospect, he was a master at using the press to pressure Michael Jackson and his lawyers. I didn't know Michael at the time. I was involved in the case. And ultimately, I ended up cross-examining attorney Larry Feldman in Michael Jackson's criminal case in 2005. But it received an enormous amount of publicity. It was a very shocking time, not just in Michael Jackson's career, but I think for the whole entertainment world, to have Michael Jackson accused of being a child molester was a very, very, it was a shocking event in Los Angeles, as well as around the world, because Michael Jackson, was thought then to be one of the greatest geniuses in the history of the entertainment world. I mean, as a choreographer, as a singer, as a dancer, a genius, an innovator, a revolutionary, and just so popular and so well liked. To have allegations like this surface was utterly shocking. This attorney was always on the radio and on TV, pressuring the defense and pressuring people who cared about Michael Jackson's reputation. And unfortunately, he succeeded. Lawyers like Howard Weitzman.
I was just about to type in the chat. This program that we use, StreamYard, it gets... Okay, she's back.
I'm back.
It gets glitchy and it kicks people out. But I think
y'all. It did kick me out.
It's
Can you guys
weird
hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, let me get back to it. Sorry for that, y'all. StreamYard loves us.
It be kicking the host out. That don't make sense.
Okay, let me go back a few seconds.
Reason entered into a settlement with the plaintiffs for a reported $20 million. That's what the reports were. And I think Michael Jackson's life was changed forever. I don't think he ever overcame the fallout from that settlement. In fact, when I agreed to represent Michael Jackson in his criminal case, I had never tried a case in Santa Barbara County where this case was filed. Santa Barbara County is a county north of Los Angeles County where I practice. And because I had never been in a courthouse in Santa Barbara County, I hired a consultant, a jury consultant, to do some research into the community, to do some testing of attitudes and put it together in a report to give me an idea of what people were thinking and feeling about this case. And she did that. She obtained a lot of data, correlated age and race and occupation and political preference, what part of town you lived in, all this data to try and come up with an idea of who in general might be a pro-defense juror, who in general might be a pro-prosecution juror. And in the process, she did inform me that everybody was most bothered by that settlement in '93, that the general feeling was, if you're innocent, you don't pay this kind of money. And that turned out to be one of the main, hurdles I had to overcome in getting a fair jury to look at this evidence, because people just seemed so prejudiced by, that settlement. I don't think he ever got over it. I don't think his reputation ever really got over it, even though I think it was absolute nonsense. Remember, in the criminal case, because of the way the laws are written in California, in a case like this, the prosecution can bring in evidence of other uncharged similar conduct. It's called propensity evidence. So they tried to prove that Jordy Chandler was molested, that 4 other people were molested, as well as the main accuser, Mr. Arvizo. So we had to defend that case as well as a bunch of other cases all at once. And fortunately, we're able to convince a jury that this man was not a molester, and that these charges were bogus and all part of a pattern of people trying to just extract money from him. But getting back to that settlement, I remember it constantly being on the news. I remember it constantly being quoted in ways that were designed to just pressure the defense to pay money, and unfortunately, the defense did. And that settlement document is on the internet. Michael Jackson's lawyer, Mr. Weitzman, signed it. Then there was a press conference to announce it, which I believe is also on the internet. You can also see it in David Guest's documentary, Michael Jackson, The Life of an Icon, a documentary I really like. It's a 2.5-hour documentary that I think was very well done. I was in London for the red carpet premiere when that documentary was announced, and I think that's very good. But that settlement just haunted him, forever. When I got into his criminal case, one of the first things I did was give a press conference to announce that Michael Jackson deeply regretted following the advice he was given, and deeply regretted settling that case, deeply regretted settling the Jason Francia case, which I knew nothing about till I got into the criminal case. That was a second settlement he was told to enter into. And I gave a statement to try and, heal some of the damage that was in the atmosphere, which was, who settles these cases and pays millions of dollars if they're innocent? And I had to get the judge's permission to make an announcement that he regretted settling these cases, that people who were not writing the checks advised him to do so. They told him it would be in his business interest to get these cases behind him, and it was bad advice, and he wishes he had fought them till the end. That was the best I could do about those settlements going into the criminal trial.
Tom, were you following the early days of the mid-2000s trial before you came involved? And if so, what were your thoughts on how it was being handled before you came on board?
Well, when Neverland was raided in November of 2003 by approximately 70 Santa Barbara sheriffs, I was driving down the California
70,
coast
y'all.
from Big
70.
Sur through Santa
Wow.
Barbara to Los Angeles. I had taken about a 9 or 10 day vacation. And I took it because I was feverishly preparing for the Robert Blake murder trial, which was scheduled for February of 2004. And I'd actually had my cell phone off for about a week. And I turned it on, and within about 10 seconds, it was just ringing off the hook. And it was, people associated with Michael Jackson kept calling me saying, would I jump on a plane to Las Vegas to meet him, that he wanted me to defend him. And I said, look, I'm tied up through through February because I've got to spend all my time on the Blake defense to, homicide charges, which could have sent him to prison for life. And they would kept calling saying, nobody says no, nobody would turn down Michael Jackson. Please, you got to come. He doesn't like his current lawyer, never wanted him, wants to talk to you. And I said, no. Even Mr. Blake at one point heard that Jackson people were calling me, and he called me. I said, look, I'm your lawyer. I'm not grabbing another case, So that was my first introduction to the world surrounding the Michael Jackson criminal case. As it turned out, we started picking a jury in the Robert Blake murder trial in February. We're in the middle of jury selection, and Mr. Blake and I had a terrible disagreement over something I considered very important. We met, privately with the judge, and she couldn't straighten it out. And I asked to be removed from the case, and I was allowed to withdraw, which was highly unusual in the middle of jury selection. Judges usually don't let you do that. The chances were overwhelming that she would say no, but she said yes. I withdrew, and within, it might have been a few days, Randy Jackson called me and said, we've always wanted you. We don't like the current lawyers. It sounds like you're free. Would you be willing to meet him? And I said, yes, I would be. So
It was meant to be.
Secretly to Florida. I met Michael and Randy.
You said it sounds like you're free.
I mean, it was meant to be. Everything aligned and fell into place just like it should have. I mean, I respectfully to everybody, I'm a believer, and it was just, for me, God aligned everything for him to be Michael's lawyer, respecting everybody out there.
Even his background, you could tell.
Yes.
He was the one doing stuff pro bono.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he's defended celebrities and like people who can afford to pay him, but also he's done pro bono work. And that right there, that speaks volumes in the way that he was trying to defend minorities in the South and stuff, and older people who were being taken advantage of and all that. He was supposed to be the one. And the fact that he's still here, not only is he just like, doing interviews, but he's still on the defense team.
Yes.
Working for Michael Jackson.
That part.
I don't know that there would be anybody else who would do that.
No. I don't think so either. I mean, he is still loyal to this day.
Mm-hmm.
That says a lot about him and his character and why he actually took Michael Jackson, because he believed him, not because he was trying to get payday, not because he was the biggest star of all time. He truly believes, like us, that Michael's innocent.
Mm-hmm.
So Blessings to him.
Yes. Did he say there was 70 police officers? What was the 70?
74? Was it 70, 74? Yeah, that raided Neverland.
Let's keep that in mind, y'all. If anybody's watching this replay who's still confused about the false allegations, they sent 74 police officers to raid Michael Jackson's house in California unexpectedly while he was in Las Vegas.
Yes.
Therefore, keyword unexpectedly, if there was anything, let's say he was trying to hide or anything like that, he wouldn't have hit it because it was unexpected.
He didn't have time to. He wasn't
In
there.
conclusion, they didn't find nothing.
Nothing.
Still. And he in a whole different state.
Nothing.
No. Zebra.
I love when Michael says that.
And she said, because in the middle of that, he was like, nothing. And she was trying to catch him up. And she was like, or he was like saying, no, or something. I don't know if that was the exact part. And so she was like, oh, so you'll never do it again? And then she was trying to like catch him to say like, no, like as a way to admit it. And he said, instead he paused, he said, do what again? Do what? You know how to catch me.
I love sassy Michael. Yes.
74.
No. But and the destruction that they did. If you have seen pictures, it's just horrendous, horrible, so sad how they destroyed almost everything in his closet, his room. They ripped up his mattresses. They destroyed that place. Yes, I heard that the number was close to 80 police that raided Neverland, which is insane, by the way. Yeah. They were trying to find anything, and there was nothing to find at all. And like Tori said, it was unexpected. He was not expecting that. He didn't know what was coming down the line. He was all the way in Vegas. There was nobody for him to really call because they just showed up out of the blue. And 80 or 74 at once, impossible.
This is what they let the Santa Barbara County civilians' tax dollars go to: harassing an innocent father. That's downright harassment. Absolutely. That's criminal itself.
Yep, I agree.
Michael, and one thing led to another. But you asked how I thought things were being handled as I watched things unfold on television and in the media. I thought they were being handled horribly. I thought virtually everything I saw going on in the defense of Michael Jackson, I disagreed with. For example, his lawyer gave a statement where he almost threatened the media and threatened other people. It was a press conference where Mr. Garagos, who was Michael's lawyer initially, said that if you come after Michael Jackson, we will come down on you like a ton of bricks, or words to that effect, threatening words. And I said to myself, this is a good way to alienate the jury before it even shows up. This is a good way to make Michael Jackson look arrogant and full of himself and narcissistic. And, these are empty threats. A jury is going to show you who has the upper hand and who has the power. You don't. I also saw the Nation of Islam surrounding Michael Jackson, and I felt that that could alienate the local jury pool in northern Santa Barbara County, which was largely white and Latino. I didn't think having the Nation of Islam up there was going to help, convey any type of image that Michael Jackson was part of a community. It was almost separating him from the community where he lived and where the jury pool was going to be selected from. I thought that was wrong. I saw a meeting go on at the Beverly Hills Hotel. It was on the news, and the Beverly Hills Hotel is one of the most expensive and prestigious hotels in Los Angeles. And it was portrayed as a meeting of Michael Jackson's business advisors. and I saw Mr. Garagos, I saw others come in, and again, it looked to me like a very elitist, very arrogant way to present Michael Jackson before his trial even started. It all looked like it was designed to promote the lawyers and nobody else. And I just got a very bad feeling that this was not being handled right, that you needed to show respect for the community, be humble. And, you know, as I got to know Michael Jackson, I realized that's who he was, and he was uncomfortable with all of this. He just didn't know which way to turn and which advice to get. So I was very, very unimpressed with the way the Jackson defense was being handled. I was very vocal about that to Randy Jackson and to Michael. And I said, I think this is just the wrong way to run a railroad, so to speak. This is not the way you position yourself with the people who are going to show up at the courthouse that day and decide your fate. And when I got into the case, I did not want the Nation of Islam to be very, very vocal. I don't know if you know much about the Nation of Islam in Australia, but it's a very controversial group that does a lot of work in the Black community, does a lot of work with former gang members and people who've got criminal records, and does a lot to reform them as individuals, teach them discipline, teach them self-responsibility. But it's been a very controversial group since the 60s, and certainly not an image you wanted in Santa Maria, California. I didn't want his father and Jermaine to be going on radio and TV calling it a lynching. My statement to them was, you know, whether it is or it isn't, it's not helping him, you know, in the community who's going to decide his fate. And I didn't want race to be an issue. I felt it was an issue before I came in. I didn't want this arrogant, we're richer and better than everybody else to be a prevalent image. So I did my best to tone down everything, stay away from the media, focus on the courtroom, focus on the community, focus on Michael Jackson's humanity, his humility, his desire to bring all people together rather than divide them. And I guess that's the best answer I can give you at the moment.
So, Tom, for anybody who's listening who didn't perhaps live through the trial or is not that well versed in the trial, could you explain what the case against Michael Jackson actually was?
Well, the case centered around a family from East Los Angeles, California, which is a poor, largely Hispanic neighborhood, a family that began to associate with Michael Jackson because they had a son who was being treated for very serious cancer. And efforts were made to reach Michael Jackson and other celebrities like Chris Tucker, Jay Leno, George Lopez, to get them to, you know, either contribute financially or donate their time to help this young man recover, or both. The gist of the indictment was that Michael Jackson had molested the boy who was recovering from cancer. And in addition, there was a conspiracy charge claiming that he had falsely imprisoned their family, abducted their children, committed acts of extortion, which are crimes. And there were also allegations that he had given alcohol to this young man to essentially prepare him to be molested. And then at the end of the trial, as the 10 felony count indictment involving all of what I just described was to go to the jury, the judge, on his own motion, on his own initiative, added 4 other possible charges. They were called lesser included misdemeanor offenses. And they work like this. The last 4 felony counts in the 10 count felony indictment were counts saying that he had given alcohol to a minor for the purpose of molesting the minor. And the way the judge presented to the jury, he said that if you acquit Mr. Jackson of any of these 4 felony counts, all of which are separate counts, each one has to be ruled on, you then have the option of convicting him of a lesser included misdemeanor count, which is simply giving alcohol to an underage child, not for the purpose of molestation or any other specified purpose, just giving alcohol to an underage child. So the jury essentially went not guilty 6 times, And then for the last 4 felony counts, went not guilty on the felony count and then not guilty each time on the lesser included misdemeanor count. So they really acquitted him 14 times, 10 felony charges, 4 misdemeanor charges. And that's the gist of what the complaint was about. But as I said before, California has some very difficult laws for those who are charged with child molestation, because the prosecution is permitted to introduce what is called propensity evidence, which is evidence of other uncharged or charged similar offenses. So along with all the evidence surrounding this particular family, the Arvizo family, they also tried to prove that he had molested 5 other young men, including Macaulay Culkin, the famous actor, including Wade Robson, who, that's a whole other story. I mean, as you know, the judge in Los Angeles just threw out his civil complaint against the Jackson estate. He now claims he was molested. At the time, he was my first witness because he was such a powerful witness. I put him on the stand, and he adamantly denied ever being improperly touched by Michael Jackson at any time. The feeling was, if we just bombard the jury with all of this evidence, which was very time consuming, some of it repetitive, and as you know, the trial was over 5 months, that we will come out with some type of conviction that will send him to prison, perhaps for 18 years or more.
Tom, earlier you mentioned that the judge added extra charges to the case. Do you
Wait, 18 years? He would have been in prison for 18 years?
Wait.
Prison, perhaps for 18 years or more.
Hold on.
Which was very time consuming, some of it repetitive. And as you know, the trial was over 5 months, that we will come out with some type of conviction that will send him to prison, perhaps for 18 years or more.
Tom, earlier you mentioned that
What?
18 years was the minimum?
18 years or more. Oh my God.
That means had they wrongfully convicted him, he at minimum
18 years.
So that would have been 2027, something like that, at minimum. But I can see them trying to keep on playing him and dragging it out, because that's just how mean they were to him.
Yeah. Well, we're celebrating 20 years.
Oh wait, I'm thinking of his passing. Lord, I went 2009. Yeah, we're celebrating 20 years, so that would have been 2023.
Wow.
Crazy.
Oh my God. And I have my own opinions on how that would have gone down, but yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought about it like that.
I feel like they would have probably tried to have him in there for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I really do.
He was not made
No.
to have to
God.
do that.
Gosh, no. Wow. That just blew my mind. That really blew my mind. I'm sorry, y'all. He really was. He really was. I'm gonna keep going, but my mind just went because he would have gone. Well, they would have extended it. They would have done a whole mess. But if they would have gone with the 18 years, what was it? 2023. I agree with this comment very much. So
I feel like the heartbreak and the isolation alone would have got him, and then you have to deal with the fact that solitary confinement. If you know, they would have put him in there, or like protective. Is it protective custody? I don't know. Or oh gosh, how should I word this? They treat people who have been convicted of taking another person's life in the first degree. Prisoners treat those people better than people who have been convicted of the stuff they were trying to pin on Michael.
Right.
I saw a video where they literally was like, they ended up, I didn't see the video, but they were like bothering this prisoner who actually did stuff like that.
Mhm.
And then the outcome was they took him out. So
Yeah.
that's why I was like,
Oh yeah. So
Ooh.
I don't. Yeah. But yeah, I don't. He wasn't made for that, and just everything he would have lost, meaning his kids, his life, his freedom. Absolutely, yeah, and like I saw it back in 05. They showed what they had prepared for him already. They had everything prepared for him already.
Oh,
Where they
yeah.
were going to put him, the cell they were going to put him in, and everything. But if I said yes, he would have to been separated from the general population in prison for sure. Yes, absolutely. So, okay. But that I'm sorry. It just when he said those 18 years minimum, my goodness.
Oh,
Yes.
I remember we did that watch party and they showed that clip and they were like, they're trying to make mockery, like, oh, like he won't be able to put on his, you know how he likes to like put, well, he had to wear makeup too because of his skin condition, but sometimes he likes to wear it to enhance his stuff. Oh yeah, he won't be able to have his makeup and da 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 da. And they were like intentionally wanting to humiliate him. They wanted him, you know, him to look like physically bad and this that, and the third. I'm just like, y'all are so hateful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they showed everything inside the guard walking. I'm telling you, I remember that vividly.
So extra.
And the comments that they made, which I'm not gonna make, but everything that they said afterwards too.
That the judge added extra charges to the case. Do you think that was fair, or was the judge being pro prosecution?
I think he was being pro prosecution in the sense that I think he realized that they had had some problems in the case, problems they never anticipated. And I think he realized that they might go down. And I think he was trying to salvage something for them. Now, there is some law in California which says that, a judge, must consider lesser included offenses. But my feeling in this case, particularly since they never asked for these lesser included misdemeanor charges, was that he was throwing them a life raft. And the way the media was treating Michael Jackson, I can tell you, if he had been convicted of one misdemeanor of giving alcohol to an underage child, every headline around the world would have said guilty, even though it was a misdemeanor that might not result in jail time.
Yep,
There was some authority that suggested you wouldn't get jail for just one of these misdemeanors. But, they would have said guilty, 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 even though the bulk of the case would have been, an exoneration for him. But nevertheless, they went not guilty on everything, and we walked out of there and he was free.
Thank goodness.
Tom, why would the judge want to throw a life raft to the prosecution? What was his motive?
I think he was pro prosecution. He was very friendly with the lead prosecutor, Tom Sneddon. He was from that county and very well liked and knew many people in the county. And I got the feeling he was trying, even though he was trying to be fair in certain ways, I also got the feeling he was trying to bail them out. And I think the greatest example of that was when the defense rested our case, the prosecution then had the opportunity to put on what is called a rebuttal case. And one of the prosecutors, Mr. Zonin, showed up in court to my surprise and said, we think Mr. Mesereau has raised questions about the demeanor of the Arvizo boy when he was being questioned by the police. And for that reason, we would like to play the taped interview of Mr. Arvizo and the police. Now, that's called hearsay evidence. That's not admissible. It's not admissible because you can't cross-examine what anybody's saying. And normally that would never come in. But the judge, to my shock, said, I agree, you can play it for the jury. Now, when the judge made that ruling and when it was played to the jury, I remember the media just saying it was a tremendous defeat for Mr. Mesereau. This is his worst nightmare. You know, they're going to lose the case because of this. And I didn't think so at all. I didn't want that played, but when it was, I have a belief that one of the things that good criminal defense lawyers do is they don't run from problems. They don't run from adverse evidence. They embrace it and turn it in their direction. So I basically, in my closing argument, implored the jury to watch it again, and watch it very carefully, and watch the answers this young man gave to the police questions. And I told them what problems there were with those answers, that what he included and said and what he didn't say showed this young man had a problem with credibility. And I was later told by the jury foreman that they listened to my requests and did watch it again and thought about what I had said, and they had problems with it. But nevertheless, that's an example, in my opinion, of where this judge was trying to throw them a life raft, because I think he could see better than maybe anybody that their case had a lot of problems.
When you came into the case, Mr. Mesereau, at what point did you realize that the case was built on what we would call, after seeing what was presented, flimsy evidence?
Well, I never overreact to a good day or a bad day in the courtroom. And, you know, there are times in trials where I'll very effectively cross-examine someone, and then, you know, a lawyer will want to shake my hand, and I don't like to do it because, you know, it's not over till it's over. And you can have good days and bad days, and everything can change direction on a dime, as they say here. So I never had as many good days cross-examining witnesses in any case as I had in the Michael Jackson criminal trial. It was like just everybody had problems. And, you know, the way they began the case with a producer who did that terrible documentary that was designed to just promote scandal in Michael Jackson. They started with him, and he wouldn't answer questions, and he was invoking a privilege called the journalistic privilege in America, which allows a journalist to not give away their sources or not give away information they got from their sources. And they started off with him just looking, you know, Mr. Bashir was his name, looking terrible. Then they switched into a witness who was supposed to give very damaging information about the way their visas were being treated, and I was able to turn her into a defense witness. And I just think their whole concept of how to present this damning, you know, story about Michael Jackson just fell apart pretty quickly. And they almost seemed to engage in overkill, calling witness after witness, hoping something would just shake out and stick on Michael Jackson. And I think, you know, I don't know whether it's my strategies or my style or both or providence or whatever it was, their case just started collapsing, you know, one after another. I've in some interviews in the past, I said it was like bowling pins falling over. But I think they always felt we'll get him on something, that if we just get him on one count, he's going to be a felon. He's going to be labeled a child molester. He's going to die in prison. They felt something, the jury would give them something. Remember, this was a very conservative community with a very high conviction rate in a courthouse where people were convicted left and right. The juries were notorious for their conviction rate. A lot of people came from the neighboring Air Force base, very conservative community, very pro law enforcement, very pro prosecution. And I think they thought they would squeeze something out of it, even if some of these witnesses had baggage. But I didn't know, you know, I thought we were doing very well. When the prosecution rested their case, I felt that if I had rested and not put on a defense case, we probably would have got a hung jury. I don't know for sure, but I wasn't confident we would get acquittals across the board. And I feared that Michael Jackson would be put.
What's that?
Okay, you know how he got, I'm trying to think, you know how he like surrendered to the authorities when he came back from Vegas?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you have to like go through like an arraignment to see if you can get out on bail?
I don't know that part. I don't know.
It's
chat?
Like,
I'm asking the chat. Do you guys know?
I feel like, because I'm watching it's a fictional show, but I'm watching a show and it's like, they they arrested the person, and then they
Mhm.
had the arraignment, and the arraignment was used to determine whether or not they should be able to be put out on bail, or if they don't get bail and they have to go to jail before the trial. Because then the trial will happen, and then the whatever conviction or no conviction from the jury, and then if there is a conviction, there is the sentencing.
Mhm.
So just thinking, if he ended up not being able to be out on bail, if the judge said no, I'm not giving you the option of bail, he would have
Wait.
had to be.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
He would have had to be in jail, and that's the sucky thing. I'm trying to think. I think that's how it works.
I get what. I'm trying to see.
Okay, so
I found something, but I don't know if we trust it.
So it says an arraignment is the initial court appearance after a person is arrested and formally charged with a crime. It's a crucial step in the criminal process where the defendant is informed of the charges against them, their legal rights, and asked to enter a plea. So that's also where they say, how do you plead guilty or not guilty? Da 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 da.
I'm reading somewhere. Okay.
The judge will also determine if bail or bond is needed and set the conditions if so.
Tori Butterfly stated, usually that's the case for felony crimes.
Oh, okay.
Years ago, management in court, the judge will set bail or deny bail. Or either enter. Because I had read somewhere, and I'm reading it again, that Michael was released an hour later after posting a $3 million bond.
Oh.
So I don't know.
I'll try and find more information about that, and if I find some, I'll let you know.
Alrighty, but yeah, imagine if they had denied that. Whew.
Through a retrial, if we got what is called a hung jury, meaning a jury that can't agree, I felt the judge would probably make rulings or even worse for the defense in a retrial. And I've seen some situations, in Los Angeles where juries hung and then there was a retrial and the judge would change rulings and try and help the prosecution even more. And I just felt we had to sort of go for broke and try and, walk him out of there. So I did, there are risks associated with putting on a defense case because your witnesses are going to be subjected to cross-examination too. And most people have baggage of some kind, whether it's their memory, whether it's past behavior, whatever. But I felt we had to go for broke. We had to try and walk him out of there completely. But I thought we were doing well. Because of that, I cut 1 or 2 months off the trial. There were a lot of other witnesses we were prepared to call. I decided that the jury had seen enough. I thought we were in pretty good shape when it went to them, but you never know what a jury will do. And you may recall the jury deliberations were about 8 days. I think they got the case on a Friday and came back a week from the following Monday with their acquittals. You never know who those people are. You never know what chemistry exists between them in the jury room. You never really know who's going to take charge and who's going to defer. It's a very uncertain process. So you never can be overconfident and you never can take things for granted. But I felt we had done very well when it went to the jury, and I was hoping that they agreed with me.
Tom, why did you think that you would get a hung jury as opposed to an acquittal if you didn't put on a defense case?
Well, even though a lot of these witnesses were, in my opinion, effectively cross-examined, there still was that lingering feeling, did he molest anyone? I was just worried that unless we put on Wade Robson, Brett Barnes, Macaulay Culkin to look at the jury and say, he never touched me, this is ridiculous, which is exactly what they said, or words to that effect. I felt that some of the jurors might just have a very unsettled feeling about what kind of a lifestyle was he leading? Who was he? And we started our case with those young men saying what I just related. And I also had witnesses that were serious witnesses to attack the credibility of the Arvizos. I mean, there was a paralegal who called me in tears one day and said, Mr. Mesereau, I've worked for the law firm that represented Mrs. Arvizo in their case against J.C. Penney stores. You may recall that the Arvizo family had sued J.C. Penney stores, claiming that they were assaulted and treated badly, and the case had settled for a total of approximately $152,000, which is a substantial sum. And this woman said to me, I worked for the law firm that represented the Arvizos that got them this settlement, and I'm a single mother and I can't lose my job, and I've had the job for years, and they don't want me to get involved in this criminal case with Michael Jackson, but I can't let Michael Jackson be hurt like this. That woman told me that it didn't happen and threatened me if I told anybody it happened. And she said words to that effect. And she was crying on the phone. Then the lawyer that she had worked for ended up a witness. The attorney-client privilege was waived at one point. And he came in and said that, initially she never mentioned any sexual assault by the security guards at J.C. Penney. But when she was set down for a deposition, which are questions that are asked under oath in a law office as opposed to in a courtroom, he said he was surprised that for the first time she started mentioning that she was sexually assaulted. So I had Chris Tucker, who had warned Michael Jackson about the Arvizo family, had warned him about Gavin Arvizo, who felt that they tried to take advantage of him. I had Jay Leno, who was a reluctant witness. He didn't want to help us at all. But when forced through the subpoena process to show up, admitted that something was strange about the conversation that he thought he had with Gavin Arvizo. So my feeling was that they wouldn't get 12 jurors to convict him, but some of them may have lingering concerns about how he was living his life and what really was going on. And I felt I had to address those concerns.
Mm. And at what point in the trial did you really get the sense that the jury was seeing the truth in what was going on here?
As I said before, I never got overconfident. I always felt we were doing a very good job of showing just not only that this case was nonsense, but that the world of Michael Jackson was different than any other world probably anyone in the courtroom was familiar with. A world where, because of his enormous success, enormous talent, and his enormous reputation for being sensitive and kind and generous, that you put all of that together, and he was a perpetual target of people who always wanted something: money, fame, entertainment projects, photographs, some type of advantage. People always seemed to have their hand out for something if they were around him or had any proximity to him. And I wanted to explain that these claims were all part and parcel of a very unique person who's uniquely vulnerable to lawsuits, to scandalous statements in the media, to all kinds of ways to get something from him. And I think we effectively did that, but we had to put on a case to really tell that story effectively.
Mr. Mesereau, you touched on it earlier, but how fair, in your opinion, was the wider media's portrayal of the trial?
Well, I don't like defending the media, but I was so busy preparing for each day that I didn't watch that much of it. But what little I watched horrified me. I mean, even if the media is trying to be fair, which they weren't in general, they
never
can't
are.
quite do it, because you can't take 8 hours of testimony and reduce it to a few sound bites and really get the truth out. And you also have to understand that, a good lawyer is not just thinking in terms of the short term. A good lawyer is thinking in terms of the middle term and the long term. In other words, you're putting a witness on, or you're cross-examining a witness, knowing and expecting and perhaps hoping that somewhere, 2 weeks from now, something you brought out is going to resonate because of some other witness that gets called that you're going to question. And you're looking towards the future. You're going to connect dots. You're going to raise points and then emphasize them in one way or another. So, the media can't have any concept of this. And the media, they're just trying to entertain you for that moment. So quick sound bites are, not a very effective way to explain what happens in a courtroom. And jurors are under oath to listen and observe and weigh everything that happens in the courtroom, not just a sound bite. But I did see that Court TV was just reporting, the scandalous comments that prosecutors would bring out of their witnesses on direct examination, and then ignoring what would happen on cross-examination. I do recall a journalist from New York, Roger Friedman, mentioned this, that, nobody's talking about the cross-examination that eviscerates a lot of these witnesses. So my general feeling was one of disgust. I had always been a fan of Court TV, one of their biggest fans. I had, in my career, I used to order, in those days, videotapes of examinations I saw or heard about. Could be direct examination, could be cross-examination, could be opening statement, closing argument. And I would study these tapes to study what other lawyers had done effectively. I think that was a very important part of my development as a lawyer.
Wow.
And I had great respect for Court TV until this particular case. They just became a cheap tabloid as far as I was concerned. They brought in Diane Diamond, who was not a lawyer, who clearly had a bias. She'd been sued by Michael Jackson in the 90s, had even gotten District Attorney Tom Sneddon to sign a sworn declaration to support her position in the case. And the fact that they would make her their lead correspondent in a case like this was just an eye-opener for me. And I think my feelings about them never totally came back. I mean, for a long time, I boycotted Court TV. I would not go near them for an interview or anything. Eventually, as time went on, I changed my position. They had a couple of journalists, Beth Karras and Ricky Kleeman, who I had great respect for. I had met them in the Robert Blake case when they covered me in that case. And I eventually decided to bury the hatchet, so to speak. And during the Phil Spector case, I did conduct some interviews with them.
That makes one of us.
It's hard to explain.
I still don't like them.
The atmosphere that surrounded that trial. It was a tabloid mess. It was just daily efforts to besmirch and degrade and dehumanize and mock Michael Jackson. That's what
And that just goes to show you how much the media was trying to turn people on Michael. Because a lawyer like Tom Mesereau followed in, Court TV and stuff. And even got, like he said, cassettes to study their cases and what they would cover. And all of a sudden, they turned into a tabloid just because it was Michael Jackson. That just shows you. Go ahead.
It kind of feels like, and I don't want to make this comparison. I'll talk in general terms.
Okay.
It kind of feels like when there's something like a hot topic is out and everybody wants to report and talk about it and they want to be the first to put it out. Doesn't matter how credible or non-credible they seem, they just want to be the first person to get it out. And I feel like that's what a lot of publications or news channels were turning into. Just so they could be, I want to be the one to talk about this. I want to be the first one. And da-da-da-da-da. And we're going to pick the popular side, the popular belief, and or pick the side that's controversial because people love controversy and drama instead of trying to come at it through the lens of, okay, let me be knowledgeable.
Right.
Even if it's the non-popular side, we want to be correct in this. They don't want to do that. They don't want to conduct their own investigation. They just want to go with whatever. And then you get people like DD. I'm trying to come up with a nickname for it. Homegirl, she needs a psychological evaluation, and so did yes. Because why are we still trying to attack somebody for something that they've never done since the 90s? And she sat down and interviewed, it was that kid. He was forced to lie.
The one from Canada, I think.
Yeah, she sat down with him and come to find out he confessed to lying and being coached by an adult. And she still falls for the lies. Like, you, clear as day, were directly involved in a situation where a child lied. And you still want to keep on believing this? I don't even know how she still has a job. Her credibility is garbage.
I don't even know where she's at now.
She probably somewhere blocking fans on Twitter still. I remember every other week I used to see, oh, look who I got blocked by. I'm so proud.
Wow. I mean, everybody was trying to get, a payday, pretty much. They were just bad news sells, good news doesn't sell. So they were all trying to get a payday on behalf of Michael Jackson, which unfortunately that's what everyone tried to do. Not everyone, but 99%.
Yeah, she has a book.
No promo, Tori. No promo.
Are you? No, I'm sorry. She's obsessed. She might as well have a fan page.
Didn't she have like records and stuff behind her of Michael Jackson in one picture?
I don't know. Ooh. Wait.
Everybody says she's secretly in love with him.
She literally put out a book about Michael before the trial was even over.
She was secretly in love with him.
And by the way, that cover is ugly. It looks like it was made on Microsoft Publisher 2002. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Anyways, read Aphrodite Jones' book.
Yeah.
That's what we should. Does she have an interview? Maybe one day we could watch something with her. Oh God, not an alternate. Oh, she's obsessed. Ooh.
She wanted to be Miss Michael Jackson. She went about it the wrong way, though.
Read Conspiracy by Aphrodite Jones, guys. That is a journalist and a reporter who actually did the research and was open to learning the truth. The fact that he is innocent. She has a brain. The other people are working with maybe a half a brain cell. That's crazy.
That's where the entertainment value seemed to be. That's where the ratings seem to be. Now, Charles is a greater expert than I'll ever be on how the media handled that case. And if you haven't already, I urge everyone to read his articles about what a media disgrace it was during the Michael Jackson trial. But I can only give you my tidbits because I was so busy preparing for each day that I couldn't watch most of it.
And was Michael himself in a similar frame of mind throughout the whole trial, or in your opinion, was he up and down on occasion? Or
well, one of the challenges of a criminal defense lawyer who represents a celebrity, and remember, this was the world's greatest celebrity, this was the best known celebrity in the world, one of the challenges is to navigate their way through what is called the criminal justice system, which is a very strange, unfamiliar, almost counterintuitive atmosphere and process. So one of the problems was to keep Michael from being influenced by this horrible media sensationalism, because he would go home and his family members would be there and they would watch some of these reports. And the reports, were basically the defense is taking a beating. The prosecution has a strong case. The prosecution has powerful witnesses. This testimony is disturbing. you know, there were some voices I've since learned who were a little more cautious, but I think the media wanted him to go down. I think to see this type of rise and fall, to see someone reach the highest, you know, heights imaginable, and then to splatter in disgrace, which is exactly what would have happened with a conviction. I think that was the story they wanted to profit from. I think they were hoping that this would go on for many months, that he would be convicted, hauled off to jail. There'd be a couple of months waiting for the sentencing. So each side could get their papers together and form their position on sentencing. I think they were hoping for a lot of reports from the jail as to what he was eating and what he was reading and how he looks without makeup and how he looks without his normal, you know, clothing. I think there'd be rumors, was he going to kill himself and things like that. They were all hoping to profit from this morbid type of stuff. And they, you know, I was told later on by one very influential person in the music business that I had cost the world media, you know, $1 billion by acquitting him. So, you know, the lure of profit and ratings and spectacle was just constantly present. And it influenced the reporting, it influenced, you know, just everything the media did. And it was very, very discouraging, except that the jury decided to follow the law and do the right thing, despite what the media did. And I have to say, it was that verdict was a great moment for justice.
Absolutely. Tom, there were reports also at the time that Michael was spending a lot of time in his home studio away from the courtroom recording music as a therapeutic way to deal with the trial. There's actually lyrics. We've never heard the song, but there's lyrics that have come out that were allegedly written around the trial. And the lyrics are for a song called The Innocent Man. And they go, "If I sail to Acapulco or Cancun, Mexico, there the law is waiting for me, and God knows that I'm innocent. If they won't take me in Cairo, then Lord, where will I go? I'll die a man without a country, and only God knew I was innocent now." Do you know to what extent Michael was working on music during that time as well as a way to manage the stress of what was happening with the trial?
Well, I heard he was doing that. I didn't really dig deeply into it. I was just too busy doing what I had to do, which was preparing for each day's witnesses, whether I was cross-examining their witnesses or calling our witnesses. And I knew he was doing that. I heard it. I didn't really follow the music. I didn't know exactly what he was doing. I encourage him to relax and in some ways escape through whatever means he could. And just take one day at a time. I told him, you know, get up each day, and when you wake up, before you get out of bed, close your eyes and just inventory all the wonderful blessings, the wonderful experiences, the wonderful accomplishments, family, friends that your life has been blessed with, and just say, "Dear God, just get me through today. Let tomorrow will take care of itself." I suggested he start each day that way. So I knew he was going to the studio. I really didn't know what he was composing or creating, but I was hoping it would help him, you know, cope with the events. By the way, back to your last question, Jermaine Jackson wrote a book, which I thought was very well written, where he did say that, you know, we kept getting media reports that the trial was going badly for the defense, and then we would talk to Tom Mesereau, and he would tell us the opposite.
I remember that.
So it's you know, unfortunately, people in the entertainment business, they think what they watch on TV is the trial, and that's not the trial. The trial is going on in a courtroom with 13 people, a judge and 12 jurors who are weighing and watching everything that happens within certain rules. And it's a totally different world from the world of the media and entertainment. But to tell an entertainer that that's not the reality, that the reality is something you're not really watching at night, is hard.
Tom, you spoke a moment ago about the ways that you told Michael to cope with the trial. How well did you think he coped with the trial? And what did you observe about his deterioration during the trial?
Well, imagine, you know, the Michael Jackson, you know, extraordinarily sensitive, extraordinarily intuitive, very creative, very humane, very compassionate, a genius who sees things we don't see, who hears things we can't hear, who will come up with creative concepts that we can't even imagine, where they came from. So you take someone with that extraordinary sensitivity and throw him into this nightmarish criminal trial where he's being accused of conspiring with other hoodlums to abduct children, to falsely imprison a family, to take a cancer-stricken child who at one point was thought to be dying and give him alcohol to prepare him to be molested. I mean, if you put all these accusations together, they were saying he was a monster. And you take an extraordinarily sensitive, gifted, vulnerable person like that and make him sit there 5 days a week for 5 months, not to mention the stressful buildup to the trial, where the media coverage was terrible. And every day he knows if these strangers choose to believe the prosecutors and the police, I'm probably going to die in a California state prison. And you throw in all the horrible stories about what prison life is like. So you would expect someone like that to have an enormously difficult time coping with it. Any human being, even people with a thicker skin and less sensitivity than him, have a tough time. So I always assume that clients are probably, going to their physicians and being prescribed antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication or sleep medication. That would be something to be expected. He was always very lucid and very conversant and very articulate with me, but I did notice him losing weight. And, as we all know, on verdict day, he just looked horrible. He looked like his cheeks were sunken in, that, he hadn't slept for days. He looked very, very haggard and paralyzed with fear. That's what I remember thinking about him. I was hopeful. I was optimistic. I thought we were going to win, but if we hadn't, I would have gone back to my office to fight another day. He would have been destroyed. He would have been immediately remanded to jail. He would have been isolated from everyone else. He could have been abused interminably and nobody would have known it. He could have been shipped off to some underground jail to await sentencing. I mean, the horrors that he could have faced were horrible. I wasn't facing those horrors, even though things were stressful for me. So he did deteriorate. You would expect someone to in that position, but I think because of his extraordinarily sensitive being, his extraordinarily kind, decent ways, I think it made it harder for him to sit there day after day and be accused of being a monster that he couldn't even imagine being. I mean, think of this. Can you imagine Michael Jackson arranging a conspiracy of mobsters to falsely imprison a family, to abduct children? Can you imagine him being a cold monster and wanting to give alcohol to a cancer-stricken child to prepare him and weaken his defenses so he could be molested? That's what he was being charged with.
That's insane to think about, though. How could they even come up with that? You have to be like mentally ill.
Yeah, that's why I said they need psychological evaluations quickly. Well, DS can't really. Yeah, he can't get one, but DD can, and that whole family, especially the mother. You share a name with a Jackson member, a first name with a Jackson member already, and then you go and marry someone with the last name Jackson. Like, that's insane. That's a level of you need
obsession. Yeah.
And then Michael didn't even want his kids seeing him drink alcohol. Didn't they have him had them put it in like a soda can on the planes?
Yes.
So that don't even sound like him.
But to say that he did that to do the damage, that's how did they even come up with that? I mean,
because they're sick in the head. That's why
they researched that. If that's even true. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not. If alcohol does lower your defenses, I don't know. I haven't done my research on that, so I don't know. But to accuse someone, if it's true, then they researched it just to come up with something like that. That's weird. That's disgusting. Not weird. That's disgusting. That's disturbing.
Trifling. And
Come on.
I'm glad Tom recognized that even though he was helping to fight this case, he still had the privilege to be free. It wasn't him put on trial.
Yeah.
It was Michael. And I'm glad that he recognized what he went through and that he brought it common sense. Like, as nice as Michael is and everything. And I think he talked about a little while ago, he said something about his desire wanting to bring people together and stuff. Common sense, y'all. That does not sound like Michael. He was nice. He was kind. He was like just so innocent, and like nobody's perfect. We all have flaws, you know. We may get angry or lash out at people, this and that, third. Just, you know, little things and all that.
I mean, sometimes you get so mad that you might break a phone, but it's okay. It's human.
Yeah. It's human. But he wouldn't do something like this. This just doesn't sound like him.
No.
And I think to people, because he was a celebrity and he was just unique and he was good, I felt like they probably thought, oh, too good to be true.
Right.
No, just because things have been tainted and Hollywood and this, that, and the third does not mean that he was involved in that.
But like, people have always said, why are they so obsessed with accusing Michael of being a monster? Like, why? What is the obsession of Michael Jackson being guilty? Why are so people? But not just even the regular people. They're like, oh, Michael. Okay, I'm like, okay, they know I'm a fan. So why do you think that? Because the media told me.
You can't listen to the media, remember? I thought we was all woke now. Everybody wants to be woke and against the media until it comes to Michael Jackson. Suddenly they're sheep.
Right.
They're all sheep. And I think it comes from a place of wanting drama. You know, like I was saying, like they want things to be wrong. Like the minute you ever hear about like the minute a certain celebrity, we don't even know all the facts. Oh, this celebrity got arrested. People like, oh, I knew I didn't like her for a reason. Oh, I knew they were a terrible person. I knew I got a bad feeling about them. Like immediately, everybody jumps on the bandwagon.
Right, and that's what all they do.
And Michael got it pretty much the worst.
Mm-hmm.
I just gotta say, I think he got it the worst, like at all celebrities.
Definitely, and for so long too.
Mm-hmm.
For so long, like. But I don't get the obsession. But that was very heartbreaking, like you said, that Tom recognized that. Yeah, at the end of the day, he gets to go to his office. But if things wouldn't have worked out the way that they did, Michael would have pretty much lost everything. Because that's go ahead.
I mean, I'm glad it did not go the other way. I'm glad they recognized his innocence and let him go. But had it went the other way, I truly believe Tom would have been like, okay, immediately he would have gone home. How can we, what's the word? How can we appeal this? How can we, who do I need to get? Like maybe he would have worked with some sort of innocence project organization or something like that. Like I feel like he would have been hitting the ground running immediately on how to get this reversed.
Yes, but that still would have
hard.
Michael, even if that happened and Michael would have came out innocent at the end of the day, he would have never been able to live as freely and complete as possible because the media wouldn't have let him and the regular general public wouldn't have let him live it that down. He still, even though he was innocent, he still had a hard time. So imagine if they would have said like guilty in the beginning. It would have been.
Yeah, it would have been even worse.
So, just the thought of it, like.
I've seen them even like with kids or like young teenagers who are manipulated in their young minds who aren't even fully developed. even when they've been wrongfully convicted, they got that guilty conviction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When they've gotten exonerated, people still believe to this day they did it.
Right. Right.
To this day. So imagine that, like like
That's
you said,
still what haunted him.
this was God, because one thing about him, he'll make the Bible says he'll make your enemy your footstool. Like the fact that there were these like the jury and stuff was not, I don't think it was like necessarily a jury of his peers. It was very much, I think it was a lot of them were women. They were not black. And with that, you could get some bias or discrimination against the person, against the defendant. But the fact that it still worked out in his favor, like it defied all odds.
Yeah. And the county that he was in. And we heard that the judge was friends with we're gonna call him DS.
Yeah.
So
see,
like, sorry to cut you off, but like everything was for Michael, but then everything again was against Michael. If you look at it, it was for Michael, you know, with Tom and everything like that. Like everything worked out for him to be his lawyer, but in California with the county and all that, everything was against him.
Right.
So.
Right. That worked out in his favor, and it took a miracle. And that lets you know, for anybody watching or watching this replay who does not think he was innocent, just that mere fact alone, that there were people on that jury who were on a side that was more, you know, like they were saying, conservative, or they may not have been his peer, or, you know, the fact that the judge was cool with the prosecution team. So there was that plus for the prosecution. Things were stacked against Michael. It didn't seem like the demographic would try to hear him out or see him through. But the fact that evidence was presented, they were willing to have their minds, you know, open to the fact of his innocence, lets you know. Because he said they were handing out guilty convictions left and right, all through that courthouse. And here you have a high-profile case from a high-profile celebrity, and not one guilty conviction, not one count.
Say that again.
Not one guilty conviction, not one count. If that doesn't speak volumes to you, if that doesn't convince you of his innocence, then maybe you need to open your mind.
Right. Watch our other lives from March.
March with Michael, the live series.
There you go.
Jennifer Jackson's channel. The channel you are watching now.
Check that out.
It addresses everything, the settlement, all of it. Even things that we didn't even know. And it all points to his innocence. So, yep.
We got a good while. This is a very long interview, by the way. I didn't know it was this long.
He's going to end up, and he's very well spoken.
Yeah. So I'm gonna hit play again.
Okay.
It's mind-boggling, but that's what he was filed to prepare him and weaken his defenses so he could be molested. That's what he was being charged with.
Insane.
It's mind-boggling. But that's what he was being charged with. This is someone who was championing the cause of the world's children, who really saw himself as someone who could make a difference, trying to get the world to focus on children. He wanted an International Children's Day. He focused on children from poverty, from backgrounds of violence and deprivation. He loved to see foster children come to Neverland and have fun and see the zoo and the amusement rides. Can you imagine taking that kind of a being and throwing him into a courtroom where he's facing the rest of his life in prison, perhaps, because he was a gangster who did this kind of stuff? It's ridiculous, but there he was. So yes, he did go downhill in many ways, and he looked terrible the last day.
Man.
Mr. Mesereau, you had an incredible team working with you on the trial. Included in that team was Susan Yu.
Yes.
What particular part did Susan play in the trial case?
Well, I had met Susan Yu a number of years before, because I was a criminal lawyer subleasing space in Los Angeles from her law firm, which was a civil law firm. And I got to know her, and I perceived her as a super bright, very accomplished, very original lawyer who would give a fresh look at anything she examined. And I also noticed her work ethic was unbelievable. She's just a workaholic and just a fierce warrior for her clients. And I wanted her to join me in the Robert Blake case, and she was quite surprised because she didn't understand why I would want a predominantly civil lawyer working with me on a homicide case. And I said, look, that's for me to decide. I know what kind of work you're going to do, and you're going to give a fresh, creative, brilliant look at everything you see. You're going to be very honest about, your conclusions. You're going to know the evidence backwards and forwards. So we worked together on the Blake case, and then she did the same thing in the Michael Jackson case. She organized the evidence, understood it thoroughly, put a team together to organize it and prepare it. And she was the only one I really trusted about my thoughts, because there was so much jealousy and resentment in other quarters. Cases like this are hard to manage and hard to cope with. Sometimes you think the fight's as fierce or fiercer within your own camp as it is fighting the other side, because of the enormous jealousy, resentment, desire to be in the limelight. Susan didn't have any of those problems. She just did a phenomenal job helping me prepare that case and helping me try it. And I'll always, be grateful to the tremendous sacrifice and job she did. She put together a team of paralegals who worked round the clock. And the way we did it was Susan had her own duplex. I had my own duplex. Staff had their duplexes and apartments. And we had one duplex we called the War Room that was 2 levels, and it had thousands of binders and computers. And the staff had a key to my duplex. So I would go to bed about 7:30, latest 8 o'clock every night. I would wake up without fail at 3. And when I woke up, I would go down to my stairwell, and I would see that the staff had been working all night to update what I call witness books. Witness books are for every witness. I want every document that mentions that witness or pertains to that witness to be arranged in chronological order. And the documents can be police reports, interviews, transcripts of testimony, newspaper articles, you name it. And some witnesses I'd have 30 binders, some I'd have 1. And I go over and over those documents in chronological order, and they help me to just imagine how this witness thinks, how they may have changed their story or embellished their story or altered it, who may have influenced them, that kind of thing. So it was an enormous task. And Susan Yu was in charge of all of that. And she did an incredible job of organizing the evidence, understanding it, helping me present it. She was invaluable.
Tom, before we move on to the next question, we're just going to play a quick clip of a very iconic piece of audio. This is the moment that the verdicts were read out in the Michael Jackson trial.
Giving a statement. He's scheduled to make.
Here we go, Jane.
Clerk, read the
This is the
verdict.
audio feed from the court.
I remember this so well.
Superior Court of the State of California for the County of Santa Barbara, Santa Maria Division, the people of the State of California plaintiff versus Michael Joe Jackson defendant, case number 1133603, count 1 verdict. We, the jury in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of conspiracy as charged in count 1 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, 4-person.
And the crowd outside?
Count 2 verdict. We, the jury in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of a lewd act upon a minor child as charged in count 2 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, 4-person number 80.
It's just absolutely amazing listening to that audio again. I remember waking up early in the morning, Eastern Australian time, to listen to the verdict. I had to get up no matter what time it was, and sitting in front of the TV with my family, just holding my breath, listening to the verdict, I knew how long Michael had actually fought, and just watching it was absolutely incredible.
So, Tom, can you please talk us through the day of the verdict? How you learned that there had been a verdict, how you were able to get Michael Jackson to court so quickly, your thoughts when you saw him when he arrived, how confident you were feeling, and so on.
While we listen to that chat, also same question goes for you guys. Do you guys remember what you were doing or what was going on June 13th, 2005 for you? Let us know in the chat. We'll pull up the comments up here while we listen to Tom Mesereau's answer.
Well, I woke up that morning with a very, very deep, intuitive feeling that something big was going to happen that day, that we were going to get a verdict. You know, we've been on pins and needles each day the following week, or the previous week, excuse me, just wondering what was going to happen, waiting for the juror. You know, you turn on the TV and the media is anticipating, something, and then a question comes from the jury room, and people overreact. And, you know, I never overreact to a jury question. I never read into it. I learned a long time ago, don't assume it means anything, because it could be one person. It could be a lot of people. Who knows what it means or what significance it has. So I woke up that Monday thinking something's going to happen today. It was a deep intuition I had. And there was just a feeling of energy that things are going to happen. It's going to be a huge day. And lo and behold, it was. I was always confident, but anxious, because you just never know. I'll never forget the day. I'll never forget waking up with that anxiety sort of deep inside of me, with this feeling something special's about to happen. Went to lunch, got word. I'm trying to think now. Maybe it was, I'm trying to think if it was late morning. I heard that they had reached a verdict, and it was going to be taken, I think, at 1:30 in the afternoon, California time. And you can imagine the build up to that. I mean, you looked at a TV screen, and the media was just everywhere trying to speculate what might happen. The buzz in the air was just hard to explain. It just was an energy and an anxiety that is just difficult to describe. I called, Michael, and told him we have a verdict, and I called his security people and said, you got to get him here by this time. And then, of course, you may remember that motorcade driving to the courthouse, and journalists speculating and media people speculating as to whether he would ever be free again. And then, of course, the verdicts get read, and I hug Michael and I hug our team members, and we come out of the courthouse triumphant, and the fans are going crazy. And I skipped a press conference. I felt it was really more important that I be at Neverland with Michael and his family. So I didn't go to the press conference. Went to Neverland. Michael was just he was exhausted. He was just he had trouble even walking. His children hugged me, family hugged me, and he was so relieved. But battered, as I said before. I think emotionally and physically really battered by the process, but still relieved. The feeling at Neverland was not it was not a celebratory feeling. It was not like, let's party. It was just, oh my God, thank God it's over. And a feeling of gratitude to God, gratitude to the people who stood by him when many people deserted him, gratitude to his defense team. And then, of course, I remember, I forgot, just driving to Neverland. There was one point where a crowd surrounded. Susan Yu was driving me into Neverland, and there was a point where the crowd surrounded the car, and we couldn't move. And we had to get security to help us get through. And it's a very, very special day that I will never, ever forget.
Yeah, I remember actually speaking to Kerry Anderson. We did a special interview with Kerry Anderson a few weeks ago, and we asked him a similar question. I asked, was it a celebratory feeling on that verdict day, thinking, it would have been, but he echoed exactly the same thing that you are, and that was, it was a solemn feeling.
Yes.
and one where Michael was recovering.
Yeah, I visited him a few times during the trial, and he was in bed, and his children, who he was keeping away from, the courtroom and, what the process was really about. But they were children. They clearly knew something was wrong with Daddy. Something was bothering him. I would be there, and he would be in his bed just exhausted. He couldn't even move. I think that he had bouts of just utter terror. I don't know how to explain it otherwise. That, as I said before, he was a sensitive soul, not built for this process. And, the cruel hoops he was forced to go through to exonerate himself were just unimaginable.
Pardon?
He probably had like PTSD or some form of it. Like, people don't realize, like, they probably just think, oh yeah, he's celebrating, da 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 da. When you really think about it, that's a traumatic experience.
Oh yeah,
that's traumatic.
I mean, when they read it, he didn't even smile. Honestly, if you look at it, he just said his speech and then just went on his way.
I think he was like, I'm not necessarily numb, but
that's a good way to put it. In a sense, yeah.
Yeah, I think he was numb, but maybe like exhausted as well.
Yeah.
Just like he said, kind of wanted it to be over. It's probably like just like, okay, it's over. Not like, whoa, it's over, but just like,
right,
over. And the fact that even though the kids was out of it, they were probably all at home throughout the whole entire trial, or with the nanny or somebody maybe with family. They felt it.
Yeah, because Daddy wasn't the same.
Yeah.
Daddy wasn't his cheerful self. Daddy wasn't playing around and giggling and laughing. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there, but from what I've heard Tom Mesereau say, that the kids felt like something was going on.
Yeah, you could just see, like, when I was saying like about the arraignment, that was the day where like he got on the car, like very powerful, very like hopeful and stuff. I'm sure he was nervous, but like he kind of put on like a brave face. But as it went on, you could just tell like he really didn't care to put it on anymore. He was just like, all right, let's just get this over with. Like, he had his personal business put on display at court, people dogging you in the media, fake people in your circle probably revealing themselves and what they really think, or not even necessarily what they really think. They probably knew he was innocent, but if it came with a check,
right,
they're going with the other side. So it was a lot.
Yeah. And like Trish was saying, MJ knew he was innocent, more likely pissed off that he even had to go through this. Yes.
Cause, man, I tell you what, I remember when I was in third grade, I was accused of something. When you're in third grade, it's like you're worried you may get what? You might gotta miss a recess or something like that. But that's everything to you. So I remember I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna get out of this. Like, my dad was calling me about it, and I'm in the middle of work, and I'm like, bro, what? My mama came to the school. My mama thought I did it. I said, Mama, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. And you're relying on other people. Like, Michael had to rely on somebody else to plead his case, to fight for him. And thankfully, my reliance on the other people cleared my name. But still, that was a traumatic experience for this time. But even in recent times, and no, like, it didn't necessarily like go anywhere or whatever, or they try and cancel you or hop on a hate train, this, that, and the third, and eventually it just goes away. But still, that's there. Like, you don't look at things the same. You trust people a little differently. You have to move a little differently.
Absolutely.
And so, no, we have never been through all that this man had to endure. But I'm sure some things in our lives could give us at least a little glimpse of it. It's a stain that leaves it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I just couldn't be as strong as he was, because who said it on here? Honestly, I don't know how Michael was able to stay so strong. I don't either. I don't either. I know God was on his side, like he says in the song. But he was so strong, like incredibly strong.
Yeah.
Because like Tori says, just sometimes in everyday life, you just feel like way down, and you're just like, oh, it's over. Like, I don't want to deal with this no more. And it's minor stuff sometimes, because it's human. But the entire world on your back and just accusing you of the most disgusting thing. And yes, he knew he was innocent, but personally, you just can't trust government and judges and stuff. I'm sorry to say that, but it's the truth, and that's how I feel. You just can't trust it. I know, you know, it's hard. It's hard to trust. So you just never know what they were going to say or what they were going to do or where they were going to side. Yeah,
Yeah.
every single time. Every single time. And he was still loving and kind and helpful. I'm sorry. Sometimes I have a bad dream and I still have an attitude for 2 days. So, like,
I don't know how I get to the point where I'm like, I don't want to deal with nobody. I'm gonna just say to myself, I don't want to talk to nobody, not right now. And he still went, and he did have his break where he left the country and stuff.
yeah.
But even then, he was still striving for goals, working on music, trying to have partnerships with other business people or people that did music and stuff. So the fact that he was still striving, like that blows my mind to this day.
Yeah.
I'll be done. I mean, I'm done. I'm living my life. I'm laying low because, it don't matter how nice you are, put yourself out there, people still gonna try and twist the narrative and treat you this way. But he didn't roll like that. He kept going.
Yeah. I swear, he's like, I mean, I didn't know him personally, but he was one of the strongest person I've ever known.
Imaginable for him or anybody else, really. He was the most unlikely defendant in a criminal case facing charges like this, but there he was. And I guess throughout our lifetimes, people will be speculating and arguing as to what series of events got him into that horrible position. And I think primarily what got him into that position was that he was a very uniquely situated, because of his enormous success and popularity and enormous sensitivity. He felt he was uniquely situated to be kind to others, be kind to children, focus attention on the world's children, children who are starving, children who are surrounded by violence, children who don't have families. And he felt that he was uniquely situated to make a tremendous difference. And in the process, he was not going to be deterred because he knew that he wasn't doing anything wrong. And he did not realize the extent to which the forces of evil were just surrounding him and ready to pounce. And what happened, happened.
Following the verdict, did Michael make it clear to you that he wanted to leave the United States so soon and head to the Middle East?
Not in the least. I immediately, remember, I had lived in Santa Barbara County for 6 months. The trial was about 5. I'd lived there 6. I essentially had closed down my law practice to handle that trial. And I got a very good feel for those prosecutors and a very good feel for the sheriffs. And, when I first got into the case and met the prosecutors and met the sheriffs and went to the evidence locker to, examine evidence they had seized and planned to use in the trial, I had a very distinct feeling that they were just on top of the world. They were about to embark on the world's most covered trial. They felt there was no way they could lose it. They were feeling like movie stars and feeling no pain. And I remember there was a second raid of Neverland, a surprise raid one time. I was in Los Angeles. Randy Jackson called me and said, Tom, you got to jump on a helicopter. I've arranged it. They're raiding Neverland again. And so I flew from LA County to Neverland. We landed at Neverland. And I remember watching some of these police officers, these sheriffs, as they were doing a second search. And, you know, some of them were like touching his artwork. And there was almost a demonic sort of look on their face, like, we've got the great Michael Jackson under our control.
Whoa!
You know, he made on their face, like, we've
Say
got
that
the great
again.
Michael Jackson under our control. You know, he may be the great Michael. We've got those officers, these sheriffs, as they were doing a second search, and, you know, some of them were like touching his artwork, and there was almost a demonic sort of look on their face, like, we've got the great Michael Jackson under our control. You know, he may be the great Michael Jackson with all this wealth and fame, but, you know, we control him. And I had a distinct feeling that the cruelty and the abuse he could be subjected to if convicted and incarcerated might have been monumental. I mean, to me, it was like a death penalty case. I told him to leave Neverland and not return. And he seemed a bit shocked at what I said. And then I started getting calls from, I got a call from Carrie, I remember one time. I got a call from Grace Rwanda, and they were asking me.
Tori, did you know that Neverland was rated a second time?
I know. I felt like it was multiple times, but I thought it was from 93 and then this. But I don't know. I knew it was like multiple times. I just didn't know exactly. But the fact that I'm glad that Tom Mesereau was there for this.
Yes.
I'm glad he was.
I didn't know there was a second. If it's a second time during this whole trial, the 05 one, I didn't know that. I didn't know it was done a second time. I mean, I know they went in there. I know there was one time that they went in there and pretty much tore up everything. I thought that was the first time with the 74 sheriffs in there. Chad, does anybody else might know?
Michael Jackson. I want to know what year it was.
I'm gonna hit play while we look into it.
Do you have specific information?
Oh.
And that somebody's planning something.
You found
I got
it?
a call from Carrie. I remember one time. I got a call.
I found an article, February 3rd, 2004. Investigators who raided Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch in November seized computers, videotapes, and various written materials, according to court documents. There was a November 18th raid. So I'm assuming that was 2003.
Okay.
Hold on, let me see if I can find. November 18th raid. Let me see if there was a February one.
Okay.
Oh, I found something. Police have raided Michael Jackson's Neverland Valley Ranch for a second time, looking for evidence in the Child M case against him, a Santa Barbara County Sheriff's spokesman said. So this was written December of 2004. Let me see when it was. Yeah, this was 2004.
Wow. So it was rated twice.
It's part of an ongoing criminal investigation. The raid was authorized by the court, and then the trial started January 2005.
Wow.
Seemed like bullying to me. Don't know about y'all, but that seemed like bullying to me. That's crazy. And I don't know if he said it on here, but they were going to places that they didn't have legal warrants.
Right.
Going to. And honestly, if I was Tom, I would be nosy. Like, okay, let me see the warrants. What rooms y'all going into? Because I'm a lawyer.
But I think they went again and they didn't know. Or did they know about the second one? I mean, he didn't say, or he hasn't said
No,
yet.
he said it was a surprise, another surprise raid, and that's when he
Wow.
had to get on the helicopter from.
Okay.
I forgot what city he said he was in, but he took that helicopter during the second raid and then flew to Neverland, and he was there during the raid. But I'm glad he pointed out the fact that they had demonic looks on their faces.
Uh-huh. Although
Tells you,
I'm like,
tells you everything.
all right, let's keep listening.
Call from Grace Rwanda, and they were asking me, do you have specific information that somebody's planning something? And I said, no, I don't need it. I said, these people have been humiliated before the whole world. They've been embarrassed before the entire planet. And I said, they're not going to forget it. And they've been so wounded by this embarrassing loss, a case they thought they could never lose, that I really think, that based on my observations of them, that they're going to be absolutely determined to find another case. And if some child wanders through the fence, or some child's parents get up there and they want to make a pitch for money, they're going to arrest him again. They're going to try him again. And I said, he can't live in peace there ever again. They have ruined it. I didn't know where he was going to go. I did not know he was going to the Middle East until he started calling our office from the Middle East. But I strongly urge that he leave and not return. I said, many things in life have a time and a place. Neverland has run its course. You will not be safe there. You can't go through one of these things again. And as I think many of you know, and our listeners know, if you read Randall Sullivan's book, he does report that Mr. Snedden was preparing another case dealing with prescription medication.
What?
And he decided to abandon.
Wait, what?
Run that back.
Wait, what? Butterflies, are you still in here? Butterflies has a book club. Or is a member of a book club. And what? Did you know this? I didn't know this. I'm going to be honest. I did not know that.
Run that back.
Hold on. Where are we?
These things again. And as I think many of you know, and our listeners know, if you read Randall Sullivan's book, he does report that Mr. Snedden was preparing another case dealing with prescription medication. And he decided to abandon it. As I recall, Mr. Sullivan says, I think Mr. Snedden decided, or at least it was reported that Mr. Snedden decided to abandon this other case when it was clear that Michael Jackson had moved away.
Whoa! I had no idea, honestly.
Oh, this is that book, Untouchable, The Strange Life. That one.
Which one?
It's honestly, I was kind of hesitant to get this book because I saw it at a bookstore. And I was asking people's. Let me see if I can pull up a picture.
Butterflies, are you still out there?
Butterflies. So wait, he was still preparing to go after Michael after the verdict, after the case was done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And oh, he's obsessed. This is what the book looked like.
Okay.
And I was uncertain of it, so I was asking fans. I think I asked the book club members what their thoughts were. They said some people were like, "Oh, like it's still okay to read." Other people were like, there was some things in there that they didn't necessarily like, but I just didn't end up getting it because I'm a person. I'm like, if there's something here I ain't gonna like, I don't know. I just want to read it, but I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and try and find it again, or if I could get to the library, if my public library has, I could just read it for free. Or maybe hold up. If y'all got Spotify Premium, they put in free audio book thing for you.
So I'm also gonna ask Butterflies about it to see if she knows about it, because she's part of the book club, the MJ book club, And I'll post it in the description whether it's Michael Jackson fan approved or not. Because I heard about it, but Tori has said, there's like mixed reviews.
Yeah, let me see. Randall Sullivan. Okay.
But yeah, I didn't know either. Wow, he was just trying to get him any form, anyway, anyhow.
Yeah. I don't think that they have the audio book on here.
Okay.
Dang. Check your local libraries though. You can read it for free.
And I'll keep y'all posted. Whether, like I said, if it's fan approved or not. Cause I don't know. But that's insane. Like, what are you doing? Well, if you guys didn't know, sorry about that. If you guys did not know, Tom Mesereau has passed. So, but what was he thinking? What was he thinking? I have a question. My honest opinion with everything that he did and what was found that he did in order to try and get Michael into prison that was not legal. Yes.
I feel like he shouldn't have been able to continue on with this case. I feel like but I don't know, since he was the prosecutor. I don't know how that works, but I feel like, okay, well, this feels like you have a bias.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going through routes that is not legal, so I'm going to go ahead and remove you from this case. Hopefully you do better next time. Maybe even put him on a probationary period if they could do that. I don't know. Put him on leave, unpaid. But
kick him out for good.
Fire him completely.
Yeah. But I think so, yes.
Man.
MJ knew what he was doing by taking himself and his 3 children going to the Middle East. Yeah. But wow, the things you find out. See, guys,
Obsessed.
I've heard this interview before, but I don't think I heard it through all the way.
I don't think I heard it all the way either, because there's some things I remembered.
Yes.
But then there was, for the most part, I don't remember.
Yeah, for like other things, I'm just like, wait, what? So I don't think I heard it through, or I just heard it like halfway. I'm gonna hit play.
Wait, are you playing it?
Yes, is it not playing for you guys?
Oh no, since it's not on the screen.
Oh, hold on, let me go back.
You were like, technical difficulties?
For trial, they felt there was no way they could lose it.
I hit play on the actual screen and it's playing for me, so sorry, guys.
They were feeling like movie stars and felt there was no way they could lose it. I remember there was a second raid of Neverland, a surprise raid one time. I was in Los Angeles. Randy Jackson called me and said, Tom, you got to jump on a helicopter. I've arranged it. You know, they're raiding Neverland again. And so I flew from LA County to Neverland. We landed at Neverland. And I remember watching some of these police officers, these sheriffs, as they were doing a second search. And, you know, some of them were like touching his artwork. And there was almost a demonic sort of look on their face, like, we've got the great Michael Jackson under our control. You know, he may be the great Michael Jackson with all this wealth and fame, but, you know, we control him. And I had a distinct feeling that the cruelty and the abuse he could be subjected to if convicted and incarcerated might have been monumental. I mean, to me, it was like a death penalty case. I told him to leave Neverland and not return. And he seemed a bit shocked at what I said. And then I started getting calls I got a call from Kerry, I remember one time. I got a call from Grace Rwamba, and they were asking me, do you have specific information that somebody's planning something? And I said, no, I don't need it. I said, these people have been humiliated before the whole world. They've been embarrassed before the entire planet. And I said, they're not going to forget it. And they've been so wounded by this embarrassing loss, a case they thought they could never lose, that I really think, that based on my observations of them, that they're going to be absolutely determined to find another case. And if some child wanders through the fence, or some child's parents get up there and they want to make a pitch for money, they're going to arrest him again. They're going to try him again. And I said, he can't live in peace there ever again. They have ruined it. I didn't know where he was going to go. I did not know he was going to the Middle East until he started calling our office from the Middle East. But I strongly urge that he leave and not return. I said, many things in life have a time and a place. Neverland has run its course. You will not be safe there. You can't go through one of these things again. And as I think many of you know, and our listeners know, if you read Randall Sullivan's book, he does report that Mr. Snedden was preparing another case dealing with prescription medication. And he decided to abandon it. As I recall, Mr. Sullivan says, I think Mr. Snedden decided, or at least it was reported that Mr. Snedden decided to abandon this other case when it was clear that Michael Jackson had moved away.
Mr. Mesereau, when the trial ended in the acquittal, where did you think Michael would be in 10 years? Did you ever imagine Michael would be long past by the time this milestone of Vindication 10 rolled around?
Certainly not. I was absolutely shocked that he passed away when he did. Shocked. I was hoping that he would move somewhere else, rehabilitate physically and emotionally. Mm-hmm. I knew that might take a long time, but the man was so gifted and so loved around the world that I felt he would come back. I didn't know anything about propofol or whether or not he was addicted to any prescription drug. I mean, he was always lucid and, articulate with me. And I, as I said before, assumed he was probably taking some medication to cope with the trial. But the, reports later on that he was addicted to prescription medication and, this horrific thing that happened with propofol, I was not aware of any of this. So I assumed he would take the time to rehabilitate, get rest, build up his confidence, and get over the nightmarish, chapter of this criminal case. And I thought he would come back and be the creative genius that he always was.
Tom, it's not only Michael who has since passed away, but also fairly recently, Tom Snedden. I wondered if you wanted to share some thoughts about Tom Snedden and what you made of him and how you felt about his passing.
Well, look, on a professional level, Snedden was always professional with me. He seemed to respect me. If he said he was calling a witness the next day, he would. If he said he didn't have a document that I thought he should have, he probably didn't. I actually trusted him on a professional level more than I did Zonin or Auchincloss. I felt they were more prone to playing games than Snedden was. On the other hand, his zeal to get Michael Jackson was irrational and cruel as far as I'm concerned. I'm told he was a very fine father. I think he had like 13 children. I'm told he did a lot for kids in the community. I'm assuming he was a very good husband and father. And I'm assuming.
What?
So it's clear he had a love, for children. You want to be a father.
What? 13 children?
That's almost as much as many kids as Michael wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Because he wanted to adopt some.
Yes, he did. What? Oh, is there info? I don't. He had 13 children.
Wow.
It says right here 9. That's still a lot
Mm-hmm.
for him. I mean, we know him as an evil man.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Sneddon. Had 13 children. That's unbelievable.
Assuming he did a lot. I think he had like 13 shows on deal to get Michael Jackson was irrational and cruel as far as I'm concerned. I'm told he was a very fine father. I think he had like 13 children. I'm told he did a lot for kids in the community. I'm assuming he was a very good husband and father. And I'm assuming he did a lot of good things in his life, but his irrational zeal to get Michael Jackson to the point of absurdity, I can't forget either.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I remember when we were about to start the defense case, he asked me, who are your first witnesses going to be tomorrow? And I said, Wade Robson, Macaulay Culkin, and Brett Barnes. And he looked dumbfounded. And I think the only other person in the courtroom was Susan Yu. There was no judge, no bailiff. And he just seemed thunderstruck. He leaned on the jury rail. His face was pale. His eyes looked stunned. They looked stunned, and my sense was, how could he be surprised that these young men are coming in to tell the truth? But he seemed shocked. I know there had been efforts. I suspect there were efforts to intimidate them away. There seemed to be a lot of efforts in this trial to, in my opinion, unfairly intimidate people. If we announced a witness, the sheriffs would immediately knock on their door, a whole bunch of them. I remember there was a teacher who called me to let me know that Gavin Arvizo had told him he was not molested. So we've supplied the name and the address. And the next thing you knew, the sheriffs were trying to intimidate everyone. They even tried to intimidate, the defense team because the judge had a gag order. There were some reported leaks of pro Michael Jackson information. And they announced they were investigating and to charge whoever was behind it with felony obstruction of justice. So this man was playing hardball in ways you can't imagine. He hired a public relations office. Why does the prosecution need to hire an outside public relations office to handle a criminal case? He had 70 sheriffs raid his home. I never heard of 70 sheriffs raiding anybody's home, even in a case of a serial killer. So his obsession to get Michael Jackson, which he always denied, by the way, I can't forget. But as I say, on a professional level, he treated me well. He may have been a wonderful family man and father and husband. He was well liked by a lot of his colleagues, obviously. But I think his reputation will always be tarnished by the maniacal, irrational, illogical zeal with which he continually tried to take down Michael Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Mesereau, when was the last time that you spoke to Michael before he passed?
I talked to him when he was in the Middle East one. Let me try to think now. No, wait a second. He was in London one time after he had left the Middle East. And he did call and we did have a conversation. I believe that was the last one. I was not involved in a lot of his affairs after a certain point. And we had a falling out with Ramon Bain, who was his manager. As you know, I had some problems with her towards the end of the trial.
Romaine lettuce.
She left town before the verdict. I had something to do with that, as did Randy Jackson. Ultimately, she worked for Michael, not me, but...
He is spilling the tea! The tea! Let's go, Tom! Hold on, let me go back. Rewind. Wait, have you seen that video where Michael's speaking against SONY? And they're like, Michael went gangster.
He said, yeah, she left. She wasn't there for the trial, and I made sure that, and so did Randy.
Oh my. Oh my.
And he did call, and we did have a conversation. I believe that was the last one. I was not involved in a lot of his affairs after a certain point. And we had a falling out with Ramon Bain, who was his manager. As you know, I had some problems with her towards the end of the trial. She left town before the verdict. I had something to do with that, as did Randy Jackson. You know,
he said that proudly. I had something to do with that.
That lady is horrible, and I'm so sorry.
Tom, we stand with you.
Terrible. Terrible. How do you rob a father of 3?
Single father.
Single father of 3.
To live a luxurious life like it was your own money.
You know, when I was in Vegas recently, I can't remember where we were going, but it was kind of off strip. We passed the Turnberry Towers, where she bought a condo in Michael's name. I said, so did somebody else, but I don't know if I'll say her name. It started with a G. Caretaker, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
If you know, you know. Let's just leave it reading between the lines. Hey.
What about baby boy?
Oh man, I didn't listen to the rest of this because he is spilling it and I'm loving it and I'm sipping it.
I hope he continues. I need to know. I hope they ask him about that. Please.
I know, right?
Ultimately, she worked for Michael, not me, but I had a lot to do with that. I was very upset with a few things that I thought she had done. But then when Michael went to the Middle East, she reappeared. And she didn't care for me at that point. And for about 9 months after Michael moved to the Middle East, we did work for Michael.
Of course she did.
Business.
Because once Michael was by himself and didn't have a team of people that actually defended him, like Tom Mesereau wasn't there, he's one of the few people that fully, unselfishly defended Michael fairly. But once those people left the picture, she reappeared. Or once the people came into the picture like that, like the way Tom Mesereau was, she would try and get rid of them. She wouldn't pay them. Somehow, she was the one that was writing the checks, and people's checks were being missed. She was withholding stuff from multiple single fathers. What's her? She got a debt idea.
Yeah.
Like, oh gosh. To this day, it's her and Michael Amir. I'm sorry. If I ever see them in the streets,
it's going down.
That's why when he brought up the Nation of Islam, I was like, because there was some people that came back around that reappeared, like Romaine Lettuce did, and some odd things were happening. People were taking control.
Yep, very much so. And it's sad with what you're going off. It's sad what ended up, happening after that. Michael just, I don't know. I feel so bad, so incredibly bad.
Yeah,
he didn't know what was going on in his life and his finances.
Yeah, and like I think at that point, he didn't want to have to worry about it. It was kind of like I should be worried, but I really am not. And it was like he's the boss. All this stuff is in his name, but it's like somebody else is the boss of him. Like he's not really the boss of himself or his own money. And that was the sucky thing about it. And he would have had to strategically get back to where he used to be financially. And I'm about to mute myself real quick because these people is obnoxious out here with this motorcycle. Sorry if y'all hear that. But yeah,
we're gonna hear it. You're good.
It was terrible. His last few years here, people were just terrible to him. They didn't care.
They were using him left and right. And like we see him as Michael Jackson, but from what I have heard, I don't know. I wasn't there personally. I'm just saying what I've heard from people that were there. He really didn't know what was going on. So he trusted certain people that he shouldn't have trusted. Some people were handling his finances who shouldn't have been. They were stealing from him. He didn't know what was going on personally. And it's just like, but then again, it's understandable because you just want to live. And he just wanted to live, enjoy life, and be with his children. He didn't care about his finances or what got paid, or what was going in, or what was going out. So I get that in that point, but it sucks.
This trial took something from him.
Yeah.
Like, he still strived, but I felt like there was a certain aspect of a fight that got snatched away from him. Kind of like when you're so tired of like working and you're exhausted, you just are like, you might not care anymore. You might just call out and be like, oh, I'm sick. You just don't care if you get paid or not. You just want to feel normal. You don't want to have to feel like you're overworked. You should not have to feel that type of stress. And he shouldn't have had to feel that type of stress from the trial. But people, instead of them be like, okay, you might need to get help, or, you know, you might need to talk to someone because this is trauma. This is downright trauma right here. They took advantage of it.
Because they didn't care about him as a human being, as a person. They just saw him as a ATM.
Right.
That's all he was to them. He was just a walking dollar sign. Which is a very sad, very unfortunate. Hey, Marie, how's it going? Hey, thank you for stopping by. Appreciate you. Tori, you have a question.
He was Michael's, like, I think, manager at the time. I think he replaced Ramon because after a while, after all she did, I think Michael just kind of got sick of her. So Michael Amir was this young film student, and him and Michael bonded on like film and all that. Then somehow he became his manager. But there was, when that time came, like I said, certain people who had Michael's best interests at heart, and they were actually looking out for him and making sacrifices for the well-being of him and his children. Certain people were being pushed out as Michael Amir came into the picture and was promoted to like his manager. Even when fans were trying to reach Michael, you know, to see if he was okay, he was like that middleman, that the person blocking him. And yeah, I don't like that man. Don't like that man.
With every right. But yeah.
I feel like he's not talked about enough.
Yeah. Very much so.
Shady.
Business related, you know, civil matters. We did work for Michael. Business related, you know, civil matters, trying to line up attorneys, everything from animal contracts at Neverland to you name it. And then it became clear that Ramon Bain was in charge, and we were not going to be paid for the work. And we decided not to. We're not going to.
I'm sorry. What?
And then it became clear that Ramon Bain was in charge, and we were not going to be paid for the work. And we decided not to do any more work. So I didn't see him a lot after that.
If it's not too personal, Tom, could you please share where you were and what you were doing when you first heard of the news of Michael's passing in 2009?
I was trying a criminal case in...
Before we go to that, there she goes again. There she goes again. I can't say that word.
We're going to call her Ray Money. Ray Money. That's her name.
Controlling what she doesn't need to control and not paying people what they worked for. There we go. Reading between the lines what I'm trying to say.
Because why was this lady racking up $2,000 bills at restaurants and she couldn't get the employees paid? You're not going to pay Tom Mesereau?
She was supposed to administer. It wasn't her money. She just was the not administrative assistant, but you know, she was just supposed to handle the checks and make sure that they got paid. It wasn't out of her pockets.
But she put it in there. Yes, she
did. Allegedly. I get in trouble.
But she was a publicist. That's what she started out as. and then somehow she got to managing, and she,
You
girl,
know how people do.
allegedly,
World.
her manager office was in her living room at her house.
So, what a mess. So sad. So sad. It's heartbreaking. All of this is really, truly heartbreaking, at least to me.
United States District Court, which is a federal court in Los Angeles. You know, generally speaking, in America, you have a federal system and a state system. Each individual state has their court system, and you also have a federal system. I was in federal court defending a high-profile mortgage fraud case. It was a white-collar case. My client was at one point the highest-grossing real estate agent in the country, who sold homes to Janet Jackson, Beyonce, David Beckham, Barbara Streisand, Nicolas Cage, Bruce Willis, many celebrities. And he'd been indicted by a federal grand jury and alleged to have been part of a mortgage fraud conspiracy. So I was in the middle of a jury trial defending him. Randy Jackson's friend Tanya Zilke was helping me with the visuals. In other words, you know, the computer-generated documents, presenting them to the jury, that kind of thing. And I came out of the courtroom and she said, Michael has died. And I really didn't believe it, to be honest with you. I thought, you know, there's so many horrible rumors would pop up about Michael Jackson. I just sort of denied it to myself. And then I took the elevator down. I was carrying my bags and binders and starting to walk out of the courthouse, and two sheriffs came up to me and said, did you know Michael Jackson died? I said, are you serious? And they said, yes. So I went outside the courthouse, I called my office, and my message machine was full with international media wanting my reaction. And then I knew, oh my God, he did die. And I was utterly stunned. I just was shocked. I just, you know, it's almost like you're in a state of shock, you're in a trance. You don't know what to think. And I just stood for a while and thought about what a nice fellow he was, and how misunderstood he was, and how lost he could be because of all the pressure in his life from the time he was a little boy, signing contracts as a child, rehearsing till 3 or 4 in the morning as a child, being denied a childhood, everyone his whole life trying to get something from him. I thought about the enormous difficulty and sadness it was to be Michael. And then I thought what a wonderful smile he had, and what a wonderful, you know, what a wonderful goal he had to make the world better for all of us, and particularly children. And I just a profound sense of better, you know, what a wonderful goal he had to make the world better for all of us, and particular children. And I just a profound sense of sadness overcame me. Once the numbness, wonderful thing from the time he was a little boy, signing contracts as a child, rehearsing till 3 or 4 in the morning as a child, being denied a childhood, everyone his whole life trying to get something from him. I thought about the enormous difficulty and sadness it was to be Michael. And then I thought what a wonderful smile he had, and what a wonderful, you know, what a wonderful goal he had to make the world better for all of us, and particular children. And I just a profound sense of sadness overcame me. Once the numbness sort of began to wear off, a profound sense of sadness took over, and I returned a few media calls, not very many. And that's what happened.
Tom, one of the biggest controversies in the Michael Jackson fan world at the moment is the legitimacy of Michael's estate, or not so much his estate, but the executorship of his estate. Michael obviously had a different principal lawyer looking after his affairs prior to his death, namely Peter Lopez. And we don't know if Michael may have signed a final will with Peter. We're not sure about that. The final will that was presented for the executorship of his estate was from John Branca, who Michael allegedly didn't appreciate, according to his mother and various other sources. I would like to know what your opinion is on the legitimacy of Michael's estate.
I didn't know we were jumping into this.
Whoa, this done took a turn, y'all. This done took a
Okay,
turn.
let me move my bang so I can hear that. What?
Oh, let's hear. Let's hear. Yo?
And
This is
I
some
find that
tea.
interesting. As we just had a revelation that we just had, the timing of this, huh?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Sorry.
And its executorship.
Well, first of all, I was never involved in his financial affairs other than what I needed to know to defend him in the criminal trial. In fact, you just reminded me there was a point before the criminal trial where I looked at Michael one day and I said, Michael, I want you to know something. I'm not interested in being involved in your financial affairs. I'm not interested in being involved in your entertainment world. I'm not interested in being involved in your music business. I'm only interested in winning this criminal case. That's all I care about. And he looked at me stunned, like I was probably the first lawyer that ever said anything like that to him. And I wasn't even sure if he believed me, because I think, his life was characterized by lawyers always trying to get a bigger piece of this or a bigger piece of that, or cash in on this or cash in on that. And I told him, I'm a criminal lawyer. This is who I am. Okay. I don't know anything about music. I even joked with Randy one time. I said, I can sing happy birthday. That's about it. And they started laughing. So I never interjected myself into his estate, into his will, into his financial affairs. I felt it wasn't my business.
I'm too.
So when he passed away and a will surfaced, I really hadn't been involved in that process. Now, a friend of mine, a lawyer named Dennis Hawk in Los Angeles, was involved, he tells me, in trying to put together an estate plan for Michael when he passed away. And Dennis is the one that could address those issues if anyone chooses to talk to him and if he chooses to discuss it. I believe he made some comments in Randall Sullivan's book, Untouchable. But you have to understand, I was not involved in that process. And when the probate proceedings began, I wasn't involved in that process either. So I never interjected myself into this question of, is the will legitimate or not? Do these problems with the will, the misspellings, the fact that he apparently was in New York when it says he signed it in Los Angeles, do these rise to the level of either fraud or some type of malfeasance that could nullify the estate? I don't really know that. I don't specialize in probate. I never wanted to, or the law. I say probate court in America is, the.
Pardon?
I would still like to know with the legal information that he does know, that he is a legal professional. I would like to know at least his opinion.
Yes.
On why is this being produced and it's saying it's signed on this date in Los Angeles, but on that date we have video evidence, eyewitness testimony, fans who were Jenny who joins in live. She was there. She was there. Al Sharpton, I don't know if he still has a show, but on MSNBC, he had a show or a segment called Politics Nation. And he would talk about cases and stuff sometimes. This was brought up. Randy called in on the phone and talked about it. And how it just didn't add up. But I still would like to know.
I would too. Because he's very knowledgeable. He's still a lawyer. He might not specialize in that, but he has some knowledge. I'm sure he can figure it out,
Yeah.
Oh, I think he's trying to play it safe. No, not this Jenny. Another Jenny.
This is Jen. The other Jenny is she talked to us about the biopic.
She's been on other lives. I mean, I don't know if she will.
She's the one who knows Taj.
I know she wants, her information out there. But yeah. But Let me see if he answers a little bit more about that.
The legal system that involves wills and will contests and interpretation of wills and that kind of thing. That's not my specialty. So I've always said that whether you like John Branca or don't like John Branca, that I don't know of anyone better situated to run an estate based upon his experience, based upon his success, with Michael and with other recording artists, based upon his history with Michael Jackson. His history to me seems like there were always ups and downs. But nevertheless, from the point of view of pure expertise, I don't know anyone better situated to run this particular business than him. I have been quite critical of having Howard Weitzman as the lawyer in the Wade Robson litigation because he's the lawyer who signed the settlement agreement with Jordy Chandler. And I've been saying until the judge dismissed it the other day because he said it was filed too late, which I understand it's going to be appealed. I've always said, what kind of a message does it send, Wade Robson's lawyer and Jimmy Safechuck's lawyer to have Howard Weitzman leading the defense when they know he settled in '93? That's kind of a terrible message to send.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna go back because that's juicy.
Business than him. I've always said that whether you like John Branca or don't like John Branca,
not that part.
that I don't know of.
Not that part.
Point of view of pure expertise, I don't know anyone better situated of the lawyer who signed the settlement agreement with Jordy Robson litigation because having Howard Weitzman as the lawyer in the Wade Robson litigation.
Did he?
Yeah. How he died in 2021?
Is he the one that passed away?
Howard Weitzman. Let me see this.
Oh, I'm thinking about somebody else. Yes, I think so.
Wow.
I was thinking about someone else.
Because he's the lawyer who signed the settlement agreement with Jordy Chandler. And I've been saying until the judge dismissed it the other day because he said it was filed too late, which I understand it's going to be appealed. I've always said, what kind of a message does it send, Wade Robson's lawyer and Jimmy Safechuck's lawyer to have Howard Weitzman leading the defense when they know he settled in '93? That's kind of a terrible message to send. But nevertheless, as far as the business of the estate goes, I'm not involved in it. It's not my kind of business that I've ever run. And I never try to interject myself into anything other than my specialty, which is defending people in criminal trials. So that's about all I can tell you. I mean, obviously the estate is very profitable. They appear to have gotten a lot of the debt taken care of. A lot of these shows they produced have been very successful. And remember, their job is to run a business, pure and simple. They are business people, no more and no less as far as I'm concerned. So that's really what I would say about the estate. As far as Peter Lopez goes, I don't know if I ever met Peter Lopez. I may have met him once, but I wasn't involved with him. I don't know what happened to him. I've heard speculation in different quarters, but I really don't know, what to believe. So I can only talk, I only want to talk definitively about things I'm really involved in or was involved in and know something about.
Well, Tom, you commentated a little bit on the
spoken like a true lawyer.
Conrad Murray trial and also on the AEG trial. When you learned of the circumstances of Michael's death, how did you feel about that, and who do you think is ultimately responsible?
Well, I think Conrad Murray is a disgrace, an absolute disgrace to the medical profession.
I am sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. Am I hurting y'all? My mic too loud to close? Whoa.
Wait, as soon as he said AEG, I said, oh God, we're going here.
We went there. And it's June, y'all.
Oh God. This is
play.
Profession and a disgrace to humanity. I mean, I've always felt that way.
How did you feel about that, and who do you think is ultimately responsible?
Well, I think Conrad Murray is a disgrace, an absolute disgrace to the medical profession and a disgrace to humanity. I mean, I've always felt that way.
A disgrace to humanity. Whoa.
That's a
more the
low.
information
It is. Oh man.
came out about what propofol is and how it's supposed to be used, and what a wonderful drug it is when used properly, with the heart monitoring equipment, with breathing equipment, with a trained anesthesiologist monitoring the patient. It's thought to be a wonder drug. You can undergo surgery and wake up and not feel groggy, and not feel disoriented with propofol. It's described repeatedly by skilled, experienced anesthesiologists as a wonder drug, but you have to use it properly. And I never heard the name. I had been administered it, in my life, but I never even knew the name until Michael's death. And the more I learned about how it was being administered to him, apparently not just by Conrad Murray, but by others, who wanted to please Michael Jackson and make him believe that they could solve his sleep difficulties. And the more I learned about the adverse effects of this drug, that you have this illusion that you've been sleeping well, but you haven't really been, and your body is wasting away as you get addicted to this kind of thing. The more horrified I became that gallons of it were ordered apparently from a pharmacy in Las Vegas, delivered to his girlfriend's house. And I guess he was administering it in Michael's home.
Gallons?
And not even, with the proper equipment, not
Gallons?
monitoring him the way he was supposed
I don't think there were gallons, but there was a lot. It was a lot. Bags and bags.
No, because that's not the first time I heard gallons in relation to this drug.
Oh my god.
Not drug, but anesthesia.
It's yeah.
Like,
wow.
Gallons? That's multiple milk jugs.
Yeah.
And a one vial. There was a doctor showing it. It was one, and she was holding one little vial of it. Okay, they're really getting on my nerves with this bike out here.
I can hear it now.
This man across the street is so obnoxious.
But the doctor was showing the vial. But you didn't finish your sentence, Tori.
No, but I was saying the vial was small.
Oh
like,
yeah,
that
they're
was the
tiny.
dosage. Why do you need to order gallons of those?
Because it was, and didn't he say he was trying to, what is it called, wing him off of it? Is that the right
That's
word?
not. I don't believe that. I don't believe his story.
But that's what he was saying. And then he was ordering gallons.
Like, the whole, he was on it for 60 days and I try to wean him off of it.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, if you're going without natural sleep for 60 days, you should be gone before. And the way he mishandled it, I've heard the theory before that, some people think that was when Michael passed was the first time that he was administered that.
Never heard
because
that.
Of how reckless. If he was reckless with that all the time with Michael, he would have been gone before. That's how I feel. That's just it. Wow. Gallons?
Yeah. It's not good. We'll keep playing.
Supposed to. And then the way he just started to blame Michael Jackson for what he did was nauseating to me. I mean, he just seemed to think at times that the best defense is a good offense, and I'll just blame the patient. And that to me was just nauseating and disgusting. So I don't think too much of Conrad Murray, and I made that clear when I was commenting during his trial, and I think afterwards.
You did commentate a little bit, Tom, as well on the AEG trial.
Yes. Yes.
How did you feel about the outcome?
Well, I recommended the lawyer to the family. Brian Panish is, to me, the best plaintiff's trial lawyer, in Los Angeles for sure, and perhaps around the country. And I actually was asked by Randy Jackson what I thought of him, and I told him I thought he was the best. And I was there when Catherine met Brian Panish. I was at Janet Jackson's home with Jermaine and Randy, and Catherine came and met him. And my sense was she instantly liked him. And I thought he did a tremendous job preparing that case and trying it. I was very surprised by the outcome, particularly when I learned that the jury felt that Conrad Murray was an employee of AEG, because the main battle, from what I could see throughout that case, was did AEG employ him or not? And the jury found unanimously that AEG employed Conrad Murray. So I thought there would be some liability and some damages just based on that. But apparently, and I was not allowed to attend any of the trial because I was on the witness list for the defense. I was never called, but there was a witness exclusion order, which meant I couldn't be in the courtroom. I went in for the rebuttal argument by Brian Panish, which I thought was very good. I was surprised, although let me say this, in the recent economic climate in much of America has been that, juries, unless they feel the evidence is overwhelming, can be kind of stingy when it comes to making other people wealthy when they're not. So they must have, the plaintiffs, or excuse me, the defense must have done an effective job of dirtying up Michael Jackson. They must have. My understanding is they tried to blame, his unique addictions, on others and himself, and argued that they just had no ability to really understand what he was doing with propofol or what Conrad Murray was doing. And I guess they tried to establish that Conrad Murray was on the scene long before they were, and that Michael trusted his children to be treated by Conrad Murray. They clearly did a masterful job, the defense, of trying to show that they just had no way of knowing any of this was going on. And the civil trials are always gambles. They're battles over money or property. In criminal cases, you're battling over freedom and reputation. The stakes are much higher in criminal cases, in a sense. So I was surprised by the verdict. I thought something would go to Catherine and the kids.
Tom, during the aftermath of Michael's death, there was a huge publicity campaign, of course, for the film This Is It. And that was all centered on this idea that Michael was extremely positive and happy and healthy. And throughout the course of the Conrad Murray trial and the AEG trial, there was this stream of emails which came out, which demonstrated that there were significant concerns about his health, that Kenny Ortega was calling for psychiatric intervention, that there were emails where one of the concert promoters said, I just slapped him and screamed at him, and various other messages which seemed to be quite deeply disturbing. How did you feel when all those emails were coming out as a friend of Michael's? And also, do you think that although the Jackson family lost, that case, by putting that material in the public domain, has still served a vital function?
Well, first of all, I loved This Is It, okay, with one caveat. There are times where Michael does look very thin to me and does look like he might not be, as well as he's being portrayed. And I did sense that in a couple of portions of This Is It. But nevertheless, I saw it many times. I loved it. It shows just what a brilliant artist he was and what a kind person he was. And, movies like songs like It Doesn't Matter If You're Black or White, and the social significance of a lot of things he tried to do. I loved the movie. I could see it again and again and again. But there are some portions where I had the very intuitive, deep feeling that he may not be physically that well. So the movie, I commend the estate. I commend John Branca. I think it was a fabulous film. As far as the second part of your question, these emails that show that Michael's going through very difficult, painful times, they're heartbreaking. They're heartbreaking. I have heard some stories that he apparently was not well enough to rehearse, that he was vomiting, that he had trouble with some of the rigors of preparing for a performance like that. I had heard some stories. I never really knew what to believe, to be honest with you. In the world of Michael Jackson, you know, everybody claims they're an expert. Everybody claims they're his best friend. Everybody claims they're close to him. And, you know, 90% of it turns out to be nonsense. So I was hearing some stories like this, you know, third hand, because I wasn't involved, and they were disturbing. I was hoping they weren't true. When I heard about 50 concerts, I must say that my heart sort of skipped a beat, because that just sounded utterly backbreaking. So yes, I was disturbed by those emails. It sounds like the poor fellow was going through a very tough time. You know, it sounds like his insomnia was extreme. Clearly, he was being mistreated by this physician. And I have to assume his body was wasting away in some ways because of all that propofol use. So it's a very sad, you know, ending. But I smile when I think of This Is It, because I just love the film.
Mr. Mesereau, Michael said publicly that he felt the child molestation allegations against him were part of a larger conspiracy to take control of Michael's empire. And you asked questions which alluded to this during your examinations of Anne Kite and David Legrand. Do you subscribe to this view?
Well, when you're a target like Michael Jackson was, and I repeat what I said earlier, enormously wealthy, enormously successful, enormously famous, and enormously vulnerable. When you put all of those ingredients into a blender, you come out with an enormous target for all kinds of chicanery, all kinds of double dealing, all kinds of bad behavior. He was a target his whole life because of all of this. Additionally, people are governed by not just their conscious beliefs and their conscious thoughts and conscious goals. They're governed by their subconscious beliefs and thoughts and goals, their unconscious thoughts, beliefs, and goals. And clearly there was a common interest among many people from a financial standpoint to see him go down, to see him jailed, to see him incapable of defending himself in civil courtrooms. Do I know whether or not these corporations communicated with Sneddon on a conscious verbal level or written level and said, we all got a common interest in taking this guy down. We're all coming from different places. Let's work together. No, I've never seen any evidence of that. But is it possible that, you know, people in different places, in different occupations, you know, on an almost an unconscious or subconscious level, kind of knew they were scratching each other's back and knew they had a lot to gain by seeing this enormous celebrity go down? It's possible. It's possible. But I don't have direct evidence of a conspiracy between corporations and Sneddon and the media to take him down in any way they jointly could. I've never seen direct evidence of that, but it's possible.
Wow.
And following everything that's happened, how important do you think your win in the courtroom with Michael was in terms of importance to his legacy?
Well, I don't like to just praise myself. I'm not trying to do that, but I think it was enormous. I mean, I think that if he had been a convicted child molester, a convicted felon, sentenced to years in prison, I think that his legacy would be awful. You know, I mean, people would probably still acknowledge his genius from a creative standpoint, but, you know, consider him a monster from a personal standpoint. Because I repeat, those charges were monstrous.
Yeah.
You know, to want to abduct children, to imprison a family, to commit extortion on children, to molest children, to give a cancer-stricken child alcohol to prepare them to be sexually and physically abused. These are horrific allegations. And if he had been convicted of these charges, you know, a lot of people would say he was a monster. So to see him exonerated, I think, was extremely important in terms of his legacy, in terms of what memories people will have of Michael Jackson as a sensitive, kind soul who really tried to heal the world in many positive ways. I think the acquittals were enormous when it comes to his legacy, because I shudder to think what the reverse would have been.
Mr. Mesereau, you've spent much of your career sticking up for underdogs, people who might not get a fair hearing because they're poor, from an ethnic minority. After the trial, prosecutor Ron Zonen criticised you for allegedly abandoning your principles in the Michael Jackson case, saying that in any other circumstances, you would have been on the side of the Avisos, who were a poor Hispanic family. How do you feel about this statement? And did the Michael Jackson trial fit into your usual civil rights pro bono ethos, especially since you are so keen to expunge any allegations that the case was racially motivated?
Well, Ron Zonen was just full of sour grapes. He was embarrassed that they got shut out with 14 not guilty verdicts. He didn't know how to deal with the media glare. It was the first time that he'd ever faced anything like that, I'm sure. And that's just sour grapes. I never took, I never placed any importance on what he said in that instance. The fact is, I've been a criminal defense lawyer, through much of my career. I've represented rich and poor, a lot of poor people for sure, more than most lawyers that I know. But I've not just represented poor people. I've made a living too. And the opportunity to defend an innocent man like Michael Jackson, who was really up against it and who had enormous forces, trying to take him down, that was a great honor for me. And, was I paid well? Yes. Was it against my ethics or principles? Of course not. It was perfectly consistent with my ethics and principles. What was Ron Zonen trying to accomplish? Trying to have Michael Jackson labeled a mobster, a gangster, a child abductor, a child molester, a person with no conscience, no sensitivity, who takes cancer-stricken child and gives them a potentially deadly, dose of alcohol so he can molest them. What was Ron Zonen trying to accomplish? Answer that to yourself. No, there was nothing inconsistent with my ethics, professionally or otherwise, with my defending Michael Jackson, just like I had defended Robert Blake, just like I had been on Mike Tyson's defense team when false allegations of rape surfaced. We were able to convince the San Bernardino County District Attorney's Office not to file charges. But there was nothing inconsistent with what I have done in my career, and I never took those comments very seriously.
Tom, you have in the past described the Michael Jackson trial as a civil rights case. Can you explain how it is so?
Well, I felt that Michael Jackson was devalued for many ways, for many reasons. I felt that his sexuality was attacked in a brutally unfair way. I felt that, while I don't think the prosecutors overtly and consciously went after him for his race, you have very few African Americans in that part of California. I'll never forget that comment that Sneddon made to Chris Tucker when he was cross-examining him. I don't know if you recall that, but Chris Tucker, I think for the first time in the trial decided to be humorous, and he was confronted with a picture of he with the Arvizos, and he made a very amusing comment. I like that picture, where I can get one, something like that, and people chuckled. And Mr. Sneddon looked at him and said he'd get it for him if he's a good boy. There was stunned silence in the courtroom. I was hoping the media wouldn't glom onto that comment because, again, I didn't want race to be an issue in this case, because Michael Jackson brought races together. He brought everyone together. He was from a prominent Black family with 2 white children, with a Latino child. He made a statement that he wanted to adopt children from every continent, Asia, the Middle East. He was a person who brought everybody together, tried to heal the world and heal racial and ethnic division. When Sneddon made that comment, there was stunned silence. And later on, I talked to some of the jurors and they told me that they didn't like that comment at all. Do I have any evidence that he intentionally went after him for racial reasons? No, I don't. Is it possible that they were devaluing he and his family partly because of their race? It's possible. But the vicious attack on his sexuality was very disturbing, because I noticed as the trial went on and as Zonin, who was the best trial lawyer in the prosecution team, began to realize that they might be in trouble, he seemed to get more desperate in the way he attacked Michael Jackson through his questions. And he would ask questions suggesting he was homosexual, he was asexual, he was, Snedden and Auchincloss and Zonin repeatedly repeated this mantra, sleeps with little boys, throughout the trial. They were just trying to burn that into the jurors' consciousness and subconsciousness. And I felt that it was a civil rights case for many reasons, including the way they were attacking a very eccentric artist who really danced to his own drummer, who dressed in his own unique way and looked at the world in his own unique way, and really was a genius that very few of us could ever dream of being. And I felt he was being devalued because of all of that. So if you look at the nature of these hideous charges, if you look at the way he was attacked, if you look at what was attacked, to me, he was not being treated in an equal way. If you look at the 70 sheriffs invading Neverland, if you look at all the experts they hired, the public relations firm they hired, this man wasn't being treated in an equal way with others. He was being treated in an unfair way, in a unrighteous way. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, I think it was a civil rights suit for many reasons.
Tom, do you believe the Michael Jackson trial is as misunderstood now as it was at the time by the media, or has public perception got better over time?
I don't know the answer to that, because after the trial, I recall there was a poll that showed a majority of Americans thought he was guilty, but beat the system. It wasn't a huge majority, I don't think. I know Charles knows statistics better than I do.
I can give you some now if you want.
Okay, sure.
All right, Gallup, in the hours after the verdict, had 54% of white Americans and 48% overall disagreeing with the verdict. The same poll found that 62% of people found Michael Jackson's celebrity status was instrumental in the verdicts. 34% said they were saddened, and 24% said they were outraged. On Fox News, 37% of voters said the verdict was wrong, and 25% said celebrities buy justice. And a poll by People Weekly found that 88% of readers disagreed with the jury's verdicts.
Well, that, I mean, shows you that you can be acquitted in a celebrity trial, but your reputation can be permanently damaged by the process. And with the prosecution, because they were so humiliated and embarrassed by what had happened, after throwing so many resources at this effort to convict him, Zonin, Snedden, they started saying celebrity was the reason, and coming up with all of these justifications for why they lost. The media almost seemed to run away from the trial. They were so embarrassed by the way they had covered it and what they had predicted and what happened at the end. They seemed to want to run on to the next story. I mean, Santa Maria went from this thriving media metropolis to a ghost town in 2 days. It was the largest, largest number of accredited media in American history covered this trial, more than O.J. Simpson and Scott Peterson combined. And within 2 days, this enormous, array of platforms, tents, booths, whatever, were just gone. I mean, it was just like a ghost town, it seemed. I think they just collectively ran from their misreporting and their embarrassing reporting. So to get to your question, do I think his reputation really recovered from it? Probably not, because of, what Charles just articulated. People just, who weren't even in the courtroom, just assumed he was guilty because of what the media told them.
See?
And assumed he got away with it. The prosecution came out and said celebrity was a factor, blah, blah. Zonin, who's a very bright guy, went around saying it was a dumb jury, or words to that effect. And then I remember, there was a symposium that the Los Angeles County Bar Association gave, I don't know, was it 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. And Zonin tried to say they were unintelligent jurors. And I said, well, let's look at them. We had a mathematics teacher in high school with a master's degree in mathematics. We had a civil engineer with a degree in engineering. The foreman was a retired school teacher with a master's degree in counseling. We had the head of a local social services agency, and we had a number of military people from the neighboring military base who were very disciplined and very smart. This was hardly an unintelligent jury. But these prosecutors, because they were so humiliated, began to just come up with explanations like this in their interviews. And the media collectively ran from, I think, the injustice that they created. And probably in the end, Michael Jackson didn't get the exoneration he deserved. But certainly, the fact that he walked out of it without even a misdemeanor conviction must have meant something. It should mean a lot.
Absolutely. And would you say, Tom, that working with Michael changed you as a person at all?
Well, most definitely. I mean, first of all, on a personal level, I didn't know what to expect when I first met Michael Jackson. I really had no expectation what he was going to be like. He turned out to be so down to earth and so nice to work with, and so respectful of me throughout the process. That I was quite shocked that the world's greatest celebrity was so down to earth. When you find, lesser celebrities who couldn't carry his briefcase, can be so arrogant and narcissistic and self-satisfied and so abusive towards others. And here's the world's greatest celebrity, the best known person on the planet, so humble and nice and kind and considerate of others. I was really surprised. Certainly the entire chapter changed my life in many profound ways. First of all, to see this kind of protracted effort to take down an innocent person. I had seen efforts before, but nothing this enormous. And I've alluded to that and stated that throughout this interview, that the resources that were thrown out to get him, the way witnesses were intimidated, the way they tried to intimidate the defense team, the way the media kept trying to dig up dirt on me and others. And of course, they learned that I was living like a hermit. And my lights were out at 7:30 or 8 every night. They couldn't find me in a bar or a restaurant, or couldn't find me in a hotel lobby, because they would have loved to just dirtied me up with the local community if they could have.
Wow.
The efforts that were made to make sure a conviction came out of this were so extraordinary. I had not seen that in a case before. Now, the Robert Blake case did prepare me for some of it, but nothing this large. So I'd seen plenty of injustice before, but not on this scale. And it clearly, to have gone through that and to have survived it and to have won it, has had a very profound effect on my life. And to have learned that you can be the greatest celebrity on the planet and still be so kind and gentle and nice towards others was a great lesson for me.
Mr. Mesereau, I think this is our last question. What do you think is the best thing that us as fans can do for Michael's legacy?
I think, Michael was a complicated person. He was a unique person. He was a different kind of person. How can you be this kind of a genius and not be different and not be complicated and not be unique? I think you can't really respect someone unless you accept that they were human. And, to me, the greatest way to remember Michael is to understand that he was a human being, that he made his mistakes, that he could be embarrassed, that he could misjudge situations sometimes. And then look at his upbringing, how horrible and difficult it must have been to be perceived as a genius at the age of 5 who could support the family and get the family out of a low-income neighborhood, who was forced to sign contracts as a child, who was forced to rehearse till 3 or 4 in the morning, who was forced to go to adult clubs, strip clubs, dance clubs as a child to perform, who had this enormous pressure that he didn't even probably understand because he was a child. He may have faced jealousy with family members and others that he didn't even comprehend because he was a child. And that he had the character and the fortitude to break away from that as much as he could and try and heal the world in many unique ways, to me just speaks volumes about this extraordinary human being. But remember, he was human. I wouldn't look at him as just purely godlike. I would say this was a sensitive, kind, decent, misunderstood person who did everything he could to make the world a better place and succeeded at it. And that's what I have to say.
Well, I think on behalf of all of us and all of our listeners, we'd like to say thank you so much for your honesty and candor and your time today. We truly appreciate talking to you today, and also for all that you've done for Michael in the past, and for basically sticking up for him in other times as well. We really appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a real honor and privilege to speak to you. And, it is the 10th anniversary of his exoneration, and exoneration it was. And it was a great event, I think, for me to have had the honor of being his lead counsel and to lead the charge to defend him. And I'll never forget him. And I really have the greatest respect for all of you and for the fans around the world. And I speak my mind. You may not all agree with everything I say, but I try to be honest. And you all know what affection I have for him and what I thought of him as a person. He was a wonderful, wonderful human being. Thank you very much.
So there we have it, folks. We were very blessed there to have Tom Mesereau on the line for 2 hours. Tom, one of the greatest lawyers in America, and who surely will go down as one of the all-time greatest lawyers, has already been likened by the Los Angeles Daily News to Clarence Darrow. They've called him a modern-day Clarence Darrow. We're very lucky to have him on the line and to have him be so forthcoming and so honest with us. And Q, if you'd like to tell us how people can stay in contact with the MJcast.
Sure. So, of course, our website is themjcast.com. We are on Facebook as /the MJcast, Twitter also /the MJcast with a username of @the MJcast. We're on Instagram as the MJcast. And we would love to hear from you, what you thought about the show on any of those avenues. Or we also love to get our emails from our listeners, which is the mjcast@icloud.com. We'd like to say thank you to Charles for joining us today and in your assistance in setting this incredible interview up with Mr. Tom Mesereau. So thank you from both of us. And we hope that the listeners all celebrate Vindication Day in their way and enjoy this episode. Share it around. And thank you very much. That's a wrap. Keep Michaeling.
The following is a presentation.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap.
But
Wow.
yeah, I mean, that was very long. Very long. I'm not affiliated with the MJcast at all. I am just a fan. I listen to the podcast. I enjoyed the podcast very much. And I felt like, it was appropriate during this week to listen to Tom Mesereau's words, especially with the MJcast. They're great interviewers and mad respects to everything that they do. So, again, I'm not affiliated. I'm just a fan like you guys. And I wanted to, share this with you guys and discuss the conversation. Tori?
I enjoyed it. Found out some new things.
Yes.
Some things that confirm things.
That very much so.
But he's really well spoken, even with certain questions that I could see people getting. I don't want to say disrespectful on, but of asking about people that are on the opposing side. He still was respectful about it, and I feel like that shows his character. Because even though they were on the wrong side, I'll say that, he still shows that respect, that level of humility, and maturity.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like he's very well spoken, and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
glad that um, things were aligned to where he could help fight with Michael.
Yeah, I agree. Until said, bye.
Oh,
Then time's
yeah.
going by 4 years from now. I'll be 10 years since MJcast. Wow. Well, I can't believe it's 20 years since Vindication Day. I mean, that's on Friday, but it's incredible. Wow.
20
Time
years.
is flying by.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Like I had asked earlier, I remember it vividly, and a
Mhm.
lot of people do. I remember sitting in front of my TV. It was after school, and I watched it all. I watched the Dove release. I watched them say not guilty on the 14 counts. I remember Michael coming out and speaking. I remember wishing I was at Neverland with a I was too young at the time to be traveling like that. It was not gonna happen in my household. So it was impossible for me, though if it would have been today, I 1000% would have been there. Do trust that. I would have been at the courthouse, I would have been at the ranch. But unfortunately, life is just wasn't set up that way. But I was supporting from where I was. And I was screaming. And I remember after they said 14 not guilty, blah, 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 and Michael spoke, I ran outside and started screaming in the middle of the street. Michael Jackson said. I remember I am seeing myself right now running outside, screaming in the middle of the street.
We would have been going crazy if we were there. We would have been right there. I know people was probably calling out of work, taking flights across the country, around the world, just to be there supporting him. I felt we would have been right there with them. Not calling out of work though. I don't play those games. But I would have found a way.
Oh, what about baby boy? I was 2 years old. I was 2 years old. Good for y'all, baby.
I was 4. I was in
Oh.
like preschool or summertime. I think I would have been headed to pre-K.
Mm.
So that was the summertime, and then in August I would have been going to pre-K. Yo, I'm trying to remember, what was I doing around that time?
I
What was
doubt you'd remember that for.
I do. I surprisingly
You
I
do?
remember certain things. Yeah, I remember the first day of pre-K.
Oh wow!
I remember my first like thoughts about the teachers and what I was thinking about them and stuff. I do remember things. I just don't necessarily remember like the summertime.
Oh.
But yeah, I do wish I was born earlier.
Yeah, me too. Oh, me too. Every day. I was just thinking about that earlier this week. I'm like, I was really born in the wrong time. I mean, but everything happens for a reason. I know, but still, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I'll be like, "Ma, I should have been the first child."
Like, even though it was still after his passing and it was really sad, I couldn't even be involved in the things like in 2010s.
Yeah.
None of that. I just now started being able to use my grownness to do things and go places and all that. So it's rough.
It is.
I mean, like, better late than never, I guess.
As hard as it is, yes. And I'm right there with you. I mean, I was born around that time, but I was young. So I couldn't do a lot of those things.
Dangerous.
But I don't know. I wish I was like a rebel child. It just got away. Do you remember what was the first MJ song that you heard? For me, it was Dangerous. For me, it was You're Not Alone.
Wow. Mine was either I Want to Be Where You Are or ABC.
The first song that you heard?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Me, I remember You're Not Alone. And I remember like the most in Michael Jackson song was You Rock My World for me.
Oh, like when the real time release?
Yeah.
Oh God, my first memorable conscious real time release because I was an infant when that came out, was the Michael album. Like I remember this is back when they used to promote new albums on commercials on TV, and I would hear Hold My Hand in that instrumental. I'm like, oh my God. And then I remember them playing it on the radio. Like, and it was a radio station that primarily plays like rap music and hip hop and stuff. So and Akon, he is like he kind of is a hip hop artist, but that was more of like not a hip hop song. You know what I mean? So the fact that they were playing it on there, it was on TV. Like I remember it, and then I couldn't figure out how to listen to the album. So I would literally go on. This is when Amazon had it. They didn't have Amazon Music, so you would buy it from Amazon. You could just hear snippets. So I would go through and I would listen to the snippets of them. Oh my God! Oh man!
I remember. I think that was the first album that I got to buy.
Wow!
Like at a store. So I remember going to Best Buy, and they had a big display. Because I was too young for Invincible. That's my album. That's my baby. I remember the song playing, but I wasn't of age to go and buy the record and all of that. But I remember the first time that I got as a fan to buy an album was the Michael album, as much as the story behind it.
Yeah.
but yeah, so I remember they had the display, and I picked up, I think it was like 2 copies, because at the time, it was in the hype and yeah, all of that. And then later on, you learn some things and some topics, and yeah, and yada yada yada.
The first CD that I got was Escape. Actually, it was either that or like this lady gave me a mixtape. I cannot find it for nothing. And was literally like, sorry to say this, but it was like a bootleg Invincible. And she was like, before I give this to you, I'm gonna play a few seconds of the beginning of each song, and you gotta get it right.
Oh,
bruh, I got it. Even all I had to hear was the talking part. Mommy, it's Michael Jackson. Privacy. Like, man, I'm so mad I can't find it. But then I think the actual release I got was Escape. I would just listen to his music before that, like on YouTube or all that. But my sister got me the deluxe one too. And it was like the last day of school, and she was like, "Here you go for your good grades." And I said,
"Oh wow, that's so cool."
She supplied like a good chunk of my the start of a good chunk of like my Michael Jackson music collection. And then she stopped.
You supply yourself now. That's how I started. It was like, well, my sister, and then a family friend that was big on Michael Jackson. But yeah, my sister was the one that got me into Michael Jackson too. But yeah, good times. I don't regret it. I'm so glad I found him, and he's a part of my life now because he's family now. So
Yeah, I got a record. I got a record right here. It's Little Michael, and it's like at the front of my like whatever this little stack I have. I keep looking at it.
I'm not a fan of Michael Jackson, as you can see. I'm not that big of a fan.
You kind of look like you're a fan of not Michael at all.
Here's the good album. Here's the legacy album.
What's that? That says, wait, that's the picture on my shirt. Kind of. It's in black and white. The
Oh,
one
yeah.
that's
Right
crazy.
here. This one right here.
You need to do a corner tour.
Yeah, but that's on another video because this was almost 4 hours long.
No. Yeah, keep it separate. Keep it separate.
But I love this little picture. And yeah, forever innocent, no matter what. But I mean, innocent, the truth matters, justice matters. MJ innocent forever and ever. Thank you guys. Thank you for being here. This was kind of like last minute, even though we had a plan for something for June. It was kind of like last minute. But thank y'all for being here, for showing up, for popping in, popping out. Let's just share positivity. Let's share the truth. Let's keep Michael's innocent going. Let's keep spreading the message, the word. I have a playlist of the other lives that we did March with Michael, so check those out. I'll add this one to it too because it's talking about his innocence. Tori, you have another one coming up on the actual day of Vindication Day, which is June 13th.
I'll probably do it around the same time as today.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be doing that. There will be a watch party and then followed by a discussion. And then of course y'all in the chat could talk as well. There'll be some questions. Share your answers, your thoughts and stuff. Keep it positive. Keep it celebratory. Yeah. So see y'all Friday.
Absolutely. And again, don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe to this channel. You know what? Hold on.
You need a screen that says that.
Right. I have one somewhere. You saying like a little ending thing?
Mm-hmm.
Where's my thing right here? Let me pull it up for y'all so y'all know what channel to go to, even though y'all here already. If you're watching the replay. This is my channel, y'all. It doesn't have the subscribe button right here because this is from behind the scenes. So make sure to subscribe to this channel. And just thank you so much for all of those who have subscribed. Like, I really appreciate it. I never thought I would see like 500 subscribers. I thought I wouldn't have like 20. So thank y'all. And let's see if I can share this one too.
What about baby boy?
Make sure to subscribe to this channel too. And support.
Thank you.
But yeah.
Oh, yeah. It didn't show it on hers because she's on her own channel, but hit the notification bell.
Yes. Please do all of that. Show all the love they can. But yeah, we appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. And Moonwalkers out. Good night, y'all. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening.
MJ Innocent.
MJ Innocent forever and ever and ever. Remember, Friday we have another date. So tell me what about it. Thank y'all. We appreciate y'all. Have a good one and see y'all Friday. Bye-bye. Peace. Adios. Good